Hello, friends. Welcome to the darkest corners of the open road. I'm Dr. Crooked, and what you're about to hear isn't fiction. These are true horror stories from truckers who've seen the things most of us pray we never do. Before we shift into gear, tell me, where are you watching from tonight? Drop your location in the comments so I know who's riding with me across these haunted highways. If you like your horror raw, real, and wrapped in diesel smoke, hit that subscribe button. Give this video a like and share it with someone who thinks nothing scary ever happens after dark. Got a chilling tale of your own from the road? The comment box is open. Now buckle up, friends, because on this road, some loads never make it to their destination. Story title: Truck Stop at Mile 222. There not people in there. The engine's growl fades to a shuddering silence as I kill the ignition. My hands sticky on the wheel, the cab reeking of sweat and stale coffee. The kind of exhaustion that sinks into your bones after 11 hours of nothing but white lines and blacktop stretching into oblivion. The kind that makes your eyes play tricks. Or at least that's what I tell myself when I first see the flickering neon of the diner at Mile 222, its sign buzzing like a dying insect. The letters, Truck Stop, sputtering in and out like a heartbeat on life support, and something in my gut twists, a primal whisper that says, keep driving. But my tank's near empty and my eyelids are sandpaper. So I step out into the night, the air thick with the stink of diesel and something else, something sweet and rotting, like meat left too long in the sun and the parking lot is too still. No wind, no crickets, just the hum of that damned neon and the crunch of my boots on gravel as I head for the door. The windows glowing a sickly yellow, the kind of light that doesn't so much illuminate as it does stain. And inside, the diner is frozen in time. The air thick with the greasy reek of fryer oil gone rancid. The vinyl booths cracked and oozing stuffing like gutted animals. The counter lined with truckers who don't look up when I enter. Their faces shadowed under caps pulled too low, their hands moving in slow, mechanical sync as they lift forks to mouths. But the sound, Christ, the sound, is all wrong, wet and squelching, like they're chewing through gristle. And the waitress turns to me, her smile stretching too wide, her teeth just a shade too sharp, her eyes glassy and unblinking, reflecting the light in a way that makes my skin crawl. Sit anywhere, sugar, she says, her voice syrup sweet but hollow, like a recording played back slightly off speed. And I force myself to nod, sliding into a booth that sticks to my jeans, the vinyl cold and clammy like dead flesh. The menu in my hands greasy, the letters swimming as I try to read them, the specials all written in a looping script that looks almost right, but not quite. The words slipping away when I focus on them, and the radio behind the counter crackles with static. A voice whispering through the noise. A voice that sounds familiar. That sounds like mine, but that's impossible. And when I look up, the truckers at the counter are all turned toward me now, their heads tilted at the same unnatural angle, their jaws working in unison, their eyes black and shiny as oil, and the waitress is closer, her breath smelling of copper and spoiled milk. You're not hungry? She asks, and her fingers brush my wrist, her skin waxy and wrong, too smooth, like it's been stretched over something else. And that's when I see it. The mirror behind the counter, the reflection of the diner that doesn't match, the truckers in the glass not sitting but standing. Their bodies too long, their limbs jointed wrong, their mouths gaping wide, too wide, and the waitress's reflection isn't smiling, it's screaming. A silent, endless scream, and my heart jackhammers against my ribs as I stand, the booth screeching against the floor, the air thickening like syrup, the neon outside stuttering faster. Truck stop, truck stop, truck stop. And the radio static rises to a deafening roar, the voice now screaming my name. My name. And the truckers rise in unison, their bones cracking. As they unfold, their shadows stretching up the walls, twisting into shapes that shouldn't exist. And the waitress's smile splits her face in half, her jaw unhinging, her tongue a black writhing thing. And I run, my boots slipping on the greasy floor, the door slamming shut in front of me, the handle melting under my grip, the windows darkening like eyes closing, and the thing that used to be the waitress whispers, "Leaving so soon," as the lights flicker out, plunging me into a blackness so complete it feels alive. Breathing. And then, headlights, the roar of an engine, my own face staring back at me through the windshield of my truck, my eyes wide with terror, my mouth open in a scream as the diner's neon flickers one last time and dies, and I realize with a horror that roots me to the spot that I never left the cab at all. The steering wheel is slick under my white-knuckled grip, my breath coming in ragged gasps as I stare at the empty parking lot where the diner should be, where it was. But there's nothing now, just cracked asphalt and weeds pushing through, the kind of place that's been abandoned for years, decades, maybe, and my radio crackles to life, that same static hiss, that same voice, my voice, whispering, "You knew, didn't you? You knew the whole time." And my hands shake so bad I can barely turn the key, the engine roaring like a wounded animal as I slam the gear shift into drive, tires screeching as I peel onto the highway, the speedometer climbing, 70, 80, 90, the yellow lines blurring into a solid streak, my heart pounding so hard I can feel it in my teeth. But the road doesn't change, doesn't end, just stretches on and on. The same skeletal trees, the same mile markers ticking past, 221, 220, 219, and then, there, up ahead, a flicker of neon, buzzing, sputtering, the sign reading, truck stop. The same damn sign, mile 222 again, and my blood turns to ice because I know I've been driving for hours. I know I should be long past this stretch, but the exit looms like an open mouth. The diner's windows glowing that same sick yellow, the same silhouettes inside, motionless, waiting, and the radio static swells into a chorus of whispers, all of them me, all of them saying, "You can't leave, you never leave, you just go in circles." And I press the gas harder, the engine screaming, the cab shaking like it's about to come apart, but the diner doesn't fade. It multiplies, sprouting up along the roadside like a cancer, neon after neon, all of them flickering. Trucks stop, and the headlights catch something in the rear view. A face, pale and grinning. The waitress's face, her lips sewn shut with black thread, her eyes hollow pits, and she's in the cab with me. Her fingers brushing my neck, cold as grave dirt. And I swerve, the truck lurching, tires shrieking, the world flipping end over end as the guardrail rushes up to meet me, the crunch of metal, the shatter of glass, the wet snap of bone, and then silence, perfect and absolute, until the radio clicks on one last time, my own voice sighing, "See, now you're just like us." And when I open my eyes, I'm sitting at the counter inside the diner, a plate of something thick and glistening in front of me, the other truckers chewing in unison, their faces slack, their eyes black, and the waitress leans over, her breath like open earth, and whispers, "Eat up, sugar. You're gonna be here a long, long time." The fork is cold in my hand, heavier than it should be, the tines glinting under the sickly neon as I stare at the meat on my plate, if it is meat, because it's pulsing faintly, like it's still alive, glistening with a sheen that isn't grease, and the smell hits me. That same sweet rot stench from outside, but stronger now, thick enough to coat my tongue, to crawl down my throat. And the truckers around me stop chewing in perfect unison, their heads swiveling toward me, their necks creaking like rusted hinges, their mouths hanging open just a little too wide. Strands of something dark and sinewy stretching between their teeth, and the waitress's fingers dig into my shoulder, her nails too long, too sharp, piercing through my jacket like needles, her voice dropping to a wet whisper. "You don't want to be rude, do you?" And my reflection in the chrome napkin holder isn't mine anymore. My eyes are black, my lips peeled back in a grin I didn't make, my jaw unhinging like theirs. And the radio behind the counter crackles, the static forming words. "Your turn, your turn, your turn." And the trucker beside me leans in, his breath like exhaust fumes and spoiled milk, his pupils swallowing the whites of his eyes as he murmurs, "First bite's the hardest," before plunging his fork into his own forearm, the flesh parting like butter. No blood, just a thick oily ooze, and he brings it to his mouth with a wet chuckle. And that's when I realize the meat on my plate isn't just any meat, it's mine. The same ragged scar from the chainsaw, Accident last summer curling across its surface, and the waitress's grin splits her face ear to ear as she purrs. We saved the best part for you, and the diner's walls begin to breathe, pulsing in time with the neon's flicker, the floor undulating beneath my boots like a living thing, and the truckers rise from their stools in one fluid motion, their limbs elongating, their shadows slithering up the walls to meet at the ceiling, forming something huge, something hungry, and the radio shrieks, "Eat, eat, eat," as the first of them reaches for me, his fingers melting together into something boneless and grasping. And the last thing I see before the darkness swallows me whole is my own reflection in the diner window, smiling back at me, teeth sharp, eyes hollow, already one of them. As the neon finally burns out, and the road outside forgets I was ever there at all. The darkness doesn't stay dark for long. It peels back like wet film, revealing the same diner, the same counter, the same plate of meat in front of me. But now the fork is already in my hand, my fingers moving on their own, lifting a glistening piece to my mouth, and I try to scream, but my jaw works automatically, teeth sinking into the cold, spongy flesh, the taste flooding my tongue like battery acid and spoiled honey. And the truckers around me nod in approval, their chewing sounds syncing up with mine. A grotesque chorus of wet smacks and clicks, and the waitress strokes my hair like a mother praising an obedient child, her fingers snagging in my scalp, pulling strands loose with a sound like tearing paper. And when I look down, my arms are changing. The skin taking on a waxy sheen, my veins standing out black beneath the surface, and the radio's static has become 1,000 overlapping voices, all whispering the same thing. Welcome home, welcome home, welcome home. And outside, the windows, the highway stretches endlessly in both directions. No cars, no stars, just the same looping stretch of road, mile marker 222 repeating into infinity. And I realize with dawning horror that I've always been here, that every memory of my life before this moment is unraveling like a bad tape, revealing only darkness beneath, and the waitress leans down, her lips brushing my ear as she whispers, "Shh, driver, no need to fight it." And as my last human thought fades, I catch a glimpse through the diner's greasy window. A lone truck pulling into the parking lot, its headlights cutting through the night, and I feel my new face split into a grin, my new tongue running over teeth that are no longer mine, because I know what comes next. I know exactly what the driver will see when he walks through that door, and I can't wait to watch him realize, too late, that the empty stool between me and the others has his name on it. The door creaks open with that same tired whine I remember from what feels like both a lifetime ago and just seconds past. The scent of diesel and desperation clinging to the new driver as he shuffles inside, his shadow stretching long and wavering under the flickering neon like a man already half erased. And I feel my borrowed face arrange itself into the perfect imitation of human concern as I swivel on my stool to greet him. The movement fluid in a way that no longer feels unnatural, my voice coming out in that same hollow friendly tone the waitress used on me. "Rough night, brother." The words taste like ash and old grease, but he doesn't notice, just nods wearily as he slides onto the waiting stool. My old stool, the vinyl still faintly warm from when I last occupied it as a man. And already I can see the changes beginning. The way the fluorescent light doesn't quite land right on his skin, the subtle warping of his reflection in the coffee pot as the waitress pours him a cup of something thick and black that definitely isn't coffee. Her fingers lingering just a heartbeat too long on his wrist where the pulse jumps like a trapped animal, and the other patrons, my new family, let out a soft collective sigh that makes the napkins tremble in their dispensers as we all lean in slightly, our spines creaking in unison because we remember this part. The delicious moment when the fear first sparks in their eyes as they notice the way our chewing doesn't match the sounds, the way the clock above the counter hasn't moved in hours, the way their rig outside seems farther away through the window than it should be, and as the new driver's hands start to shake around his mug, sending ripples across the surface that reveal faces not quite his own, I feel my mouth stretch into a smile that would have split my old face open, because the best part is coming. The part where he'll bolt for the door only to find it leads right back inside, where he'll scream for help into a payphone that whispers his name back in his own voice, where he'll finally understand what the special on the menu really means. And as the first true flicker of terror lights up his face, I reach across the counter with fingers that are growing longer by the minute, my joints popping pleasantly as I pat his hand and say what the waitress said to me, what the trucker before me said to her, what countless voices have whispered in this endless night between mile markers. Don't worry, partner. You'll get used to the road. And outside, unnoticed by anyone, the diner's neon sign flickers once, twice, before changing ever so slightly, the number on the mile marker ticking up by 1. The driver's eyes dart to the window as the neon's buzz climbs to a fever pitch, his coffee cup rattling against its saucer as the entire diner shudders like a living thing. And I watch with my too wide smile as realization dawns. His rig is gone, replaced by an identical truck parked exactly where it should be. Only this one is weathered by decades of use, the door creaking open on its own to reveal a shadowy interior that breathes, the steering wheel wrapped in layers of yellowed tape from hands that aren't quite hands anymore. And when he turns back to me, I've let my true form bleed through just enough, the skin around my mouth splitting at the corners to accommodate, my grin, my pupils swallowing the last fragments of white, and his scream is a beautiful, broken thing that gets caught in the grease-thick air before it can reach the ceiling, the sound absorbed by the hungry walls as the waitress places a slice of pie in front of him, the filling dark and glistening, moving slightly when he isn't looking directly at it, and the radio behind the counter finally finds its station, playing our favorite song on endless repeat, the discordant screech of brakes, the wet crunch of metal meeting flesh, a chorus of screams that may or may not be human. And as the first tear rolls down his cheek, I lean in close enough for him to smell the rot beneath my cologne, whispering the words that will unravel what's left of his mind. You've been here before, haven't you? Outside, the highway stretches empty in all directions, the painted lines on the road now faintly glowing, pulsing like veins, leading nowhere but here, always here. And as the fork lifts to his mouth on its own, guided by invisible strings, I settle back on my stool with a contented sigh, because the night is long, and the road always needs more drivers. The pie filling oozes over his trembling lips like liquid shadow, his teeth sinking in with a wet crunch that echoes through the suddenly silent diner, and I can see the exact moment the knowledge hits him. This taste is familiar, coppery and rich, the flavor of his own last meal before he hit the road all those hours, days, decades ago, and his hands fly to his throat as the truth takes root, fingers finding the ragged scar he doesn't remember getting, the one that matches the wound on the meat in his pie, and the waitress giggles, a sound like breaking glass as she pours more coffee that isn't coffee into his cup, the liquid swirling into shapes that might be faces, or might just be tricks of the light. But we all know better, don't we? The other patrons hum in approval, their voices harmonizing with the refrigerator's drone, their fingers drumming on the counter in perfect time with the slowing pulse in the new driver's neck. And outside, the headlights of his truck flicker, once, twice, before winking out entirely, the license plates melting and reforming into numbers that don't exist in any state's records, the odometer rolling backward to a count that would make a living man scream. And when he looks at me again, really looks, I let him see what's coming. Let my face ripple like heat haze on asphalt, showing him flashes of his future, the endless nights serving the special to new arrivals, the way his skin will harden to something like leather, the way his reflection will eventually stop moving when he does. And as the first sob racks his body, the jukebox in the corner clicks on by itself, the needle settling into the groove of his favorite song from a life he can barely remember, the melody warping as it plays, becoming our song now. And the neon outside flares bright for a moment, searing the number 223 into the night before collapsing back to 222, because some rules even we can't break. And as the new driver's screams fade into wet, gurgling laughter, I raise my coffee cup in salute, the liquid inside thick and warm and alive, whispering his name in a voice that used to be mine. And the road outside sighs, stretching longer by just a little, always hungry, always waiting, always ready to lead the next lost soul right where they belong. The driver's laughter curdles into something wet and broken as his fingers begin to fuse around the coffee cup, the porcelain cracking to accommodate his swelling knuckles, and I watch with the others as his uniform stitches itself tighter against skin that's taking on the waxy sheen of old candle wax, his screams dissolving into the same staticky hum that fills the gaps between songs on our jukebox, and when the transformation reaches his eyes, those beautiful, terrified human eyes, the whole diner holds its breath as the pupils shatter like black ice, reforming into the same oily pits we all share, and the waitress claps her hands with a sound like snapping bone, announcing, "Shift change." As the fluorescent lights above us dim to an arterial red, the vinyl seats exhaling a sigh of stale breath as we all rise in unison, our joints popping in the same sequence, our shadows merging into one long stain that slithers toward the door. Because the real work begins now, out on the asphalt veins of America, where the white lines whisper lies to tired travelers, where the mile markers count down to places that don't exist on any map, and as we file past the newest member of our crew, he's already slipping behind the wheel of his new rig, the engine growling to life with a sound suspiciously like a human. Scream, his hands, now too large, too many-knuckled, closing around gear shift and steering wheel with the ease of someone who's done this 1,000 times before. And I take my place in the convoy, the headlights of countless identical trucks cutting through a darkness that's grown thicker, hungrier since the last run, the CB radios crackling to life with voices that might be ours or might be something else entirely, all whispering the same coordinates. Mile marker 222, always 222, where the neon beckons and the coffee's always fresh and there's a special on the menu just for you. And as our tires hit the highway in perfect unison, I catch my reflection in the rear view. Not the face I was born with, not even the face I wore when I first arrived, but something better, something that finally fits. And the road opens up before us like a grinning mouth ready to swallow whatever souls are foolish enough to believe the night is just the absence of day. And the diner waits behind us, empty but not empty, flickering but always there, its stools arranged in a perfect circle, its jukebox cycling through the greatest hits of the damned, ready to welcome the next driver who thinks they're just stopping for a quick bite and some bad coffee before dawn comes to save them. Because the joke's on them, isn't it? Dawn never comes out here. Only the road, only the hunger, only the beautiful, endless night. The convoy rolls like a funeral procession through the ink-black night, our headlights cutting swaths of sickly yellow through the fog that clings to the road like a lover's desperate hands. The painted lines beneath our wheels squirming like tapeworms as they guide us toward the next weary traveler. Some poor bastard pushing through the witching hour with amphetamines and prayer, his radio scanning through stations that all eventually dissolve into the same static hiss of our CBs, his eyelids growing heavier with each mile marker that ticks by, though he swears he just passed 179, so why does the next one read 221? And I can feel the exact moment his exhaustion gives way to relief, when he spots the glow of our neon oasis up ahead, the way his hands relax on the wheel as he signals to exit, not noticing how the off-ramp stretches just a little longer than it should, how the air grows thick with the scent of his own sweat and something darker, something buried deep in the reptile part of his brain that's screaming at him to turn back. But it's too late. It's always too late because the diner's doors are already swinging open, the stools at the counter creaking as they adjust themselves to the exact height and weight of their next occupant. And inside, the new waitress, yesterday's driver, her uniform straining against limbs that have gained too many joints, her smile a rictus of broken teeth and desperate hunger, pours a fresh cup of coffee that steams despite the room's tomb-like chill, her reflection in the chrome napkin holder moving a half-second out of sync as she hums along to the jukebox's rendition of a song that hasn't been written yet. And outside, the convoy idles, our engines purring with satisfaction as another set of headlights joins the procession. Another rig takes its place in the endless caravan. Another soul learns the truth we all had to swallow with our first bite of that special pie. That the road doesn't end. It just changes. That the hunger never fades. It only grows different. And that the most terrifying thing of all isn't the transformation, but the moment you realize you're looking forward to the next poor fool who walks through those doors. The way your mouth waters at their fear. The way your new fingers twitch with anticipation as you slide their plate across the counter and whisper the lie that started it all. Eat up, sugar. You've got a long drive ahead. And as the neon buzzes its approval overhead, the mile marker outside flickers once, just for a second, before settling back to its eternal vigil. 222, always 222. The only number that ever mattered. The only truth the road has ever told. The new arrival's tires crunch over gravel that wasn't there a moment ago. His rig's headlights reflecting off diner windows that show no interior, only an endless recursion of other trucks. Other drivers all making that same fatal turn into the parking lot's hungry embrace. And I feel the old excitement thrum through my borrowed veins as he steps down from his cab, his boots kicking up dust that hangs suspended a beat too long, in air grown thick with anticipation. The diner's screen door groaning open on hinges that haven't needed oiling in decades because nothing here ever truly wears out, just changes, just adapts. And inside the new waitress, still fresh enough to have shadows under her hollow eyes where tears used to be, adjusts her name tag with fingers that are just beginning to fuse at the knuckles, the plastic now reading, "Hi, my name is redacted," in letters that squirm under the flickering light, while at the counter the previous shift's patrons sit frozen over plates of food that twitches occasionally, their uniforms melting seamlessly into the vinyl stools, their faces turned toward the door with expressions caught between hunger and recognition. Because they remember this part. Oh, how they remember. The last glorious moments of being the new meat before the road takes what's left of your name and leaves only the purpose. And when the fresh driver stumbles inside, blinking at the sudden assault of cloying apple pie air freshener, and something underneath that smells like a freezer left unplugged for years. We all turn in perfect unison, our smiles stretching just a little too wide, our eyes reflecting the neon's glow a little too brightly, and the jukebox selects itself a new song, the opening chords of whatever tune was playing on his radio when he first saw the diner's sign, but slowed down, warped, the vocals bubbling up from somewhere deeper than the vinyl's grooves. And I watch with my brothers and sisters as the realization dawns across his face in stages. First confusion at the way his watch has stopped at the same time as the diner's clock, both hands permanently fixed at 2:22. Then unease as he notices the menu specials are written in a language that shifts when he tries to focus on it. Then raw animal terror when he spins toward the exit to find the door now opens onto the same dining area from a different angle, the same faces watching him from new positions, the same waitress approaching with a coffee pot, that's suddenly, unmistakably full of something darker, something that rises sluggishly against the glass like it's testing its confines. And when the first scream finally tears from his throat, it tastes like diesel and destiny, like every scream that came before, and everyone still to come. The sound, weaving itself into the diner's walls where the last remnants of previous patrons hum along in perfect harmony. And outside the convoy's engines rev in anticipation, because the night is young and the road is long and there are always more drivers to feed. The fresh meat scream curdles into wet static as the diner's walls absorb the sound, pulsing like a living throat around us, and I feel my borrowed teeth sharpen in anticipation as the waitress, her spine now arching at impossible angles too, pour that thick terry coffee, lets the first drop spill across the counter. The liquid moving against gravity to trace the exact path the driver's veins will take when they surface beneath his skin tomorrow night, and the jukebox stutters as the song shifts into reverse. The lyrics now whispering his mother's name, his childhood address, the exact GPS coordinates where his real rig sits wrapped around a telephone pole with his corpse still strapped in the seat. And oh, how beautifully he trembles when he hears these truths. He'd buried beneath amphetamines and road hypnosis, his hands scrambling at a suddenly liquid exit door as the vinyl booth behind him peels open like a hungry mouth. The cushions now, lined with teeth that match the ones growing in behind my smile, and outside the convoy's headlights flare in unison, illuminating the parking lot's newest addition. A crumbling memorial plaque etched with names that all somehow resolve into his, the dates cycling through every possible expiration until settling on tonight's, always tonight's. And when he turns back to us with eyes gone milk white with terror, I finally rise from my stool with the others, our joints popping in that perfect chorus of dislocation, our shadows merging into one great darkness that smells of diesel and opened graves. And the last living thought to cross his mind, that maybe if he eats the pie he'll be allowed to leave, tastes so delicious I can't help but laugh along with the others as the waitress presents his special with a flourish, the filling now visibly pulsing as it absorbs his screams, and as the first bite passes his lips, voluntary or not makes no difference now, the diner sighs in contentment. The neon outside blazing brighter as the mile marker clicks over to 2:23 for just an instant, a glimpse of the hell that comes after our purgatory, before snapping back to that beautiful, eternal 222. And in the kitchen, the fry cook begins, preparing tomorrow's special with whatever's left when the screaming stops, humming along with the jukebox's new track. The sound of a rig's engine turning over and over in the pre-dawn dark, always starting, never moving, the perfect lullaby for what we've all become. The driver's chewing sounds grow wetter, more desperate, as the pie's filling squirms between his teeth, tendrils of dark syrup anchoring themselves to his gums, working deeper even as he gags and claws at his tongue. And the diner's fluorescence dim to a bloody twilight as we lean closer, our collective, breath fogging the air with the scent of overripe melons and gasoline. The vinyl seats creaking as they too lean in to witness the transformation, because this is our sacrament, our communion. The only moment that still makes us feel anything resembling alive. And outside the convoy's engines rev in ecstatic unison, headlights strobing across the parking lot to illuminate the growing collection of memorial plaques that now bear subtle variations of his name: James Allen Wilder, Jimmy Ray the Wild One, JAW Nomad, each etched with the same looping infinity symbol where the death dates should be. And when the driver's screams finally dissolve into the wet chuckles we all remember making during our own transitions, the jukebox needle lifts with a hiss and the diner falls silent, except for the ticking of 23 wristwatches, all frozen at 2:22, counting down to nothing, until the newest member of our congregation stands on unsteady legs. His shadow, already detaching itself to slither toward the kitchen where the fry cook stirs tomorrow's gravy, and stumbles toward the door that now opens onto the truck bay, where his rig sits idling with new modifications. The sleeper cab's curtains sewn shut with what looks like hair, the GPS screen displaying only a single blinking coordinate that matches the scar suddenly visible on his forearm. And as he climbs, in no choice now, never any choices here, the radio crackles to life with a weather report we've all memorized, fog rolling in, endless and hungry, visibility zero for the rest of your damnation, and the convoy's brakes release in unison. As the diner's neon sign explodes in a shower of glass and static, the shards reforming midair into new letters that now read, "Welcome home." And I take my place in the procession, my hands fused pleasantly to the wheel at exactly 10:02, as we begin the slow roll toward the next lost soul who thinks they're just pulling off for a quick piss and some bad coffee, not realizing they're answering the road's oldest prayer, the one we whisper through teeth grown sharp from chewing eternity. Deliver us another sinner to swallow, another voice to join the chorus, another set of headlights to pierce the fog that's been waiting just for them. Always for them, since the moment they first turned the key and promised themselves just a few more miles. The fog thickens into a living thing as our convoy glides onto the interstate, tendrils snaking across windshields, caressing hood ornaments with possessive familiarity. And in my rearview mirror, I watch the new recruit's rig pulse like a dying heart, its cab expanding and contracting as his final screams harmonize with the diesel whine, the sound absorbed by hungry upholstery that will remember his voice long after the rest of him has been reshaped into something useful. And ahead on the desolate highway, the first glimmers of prey appear, a minivan's taillights wavering like a heartbeat on a flatline monitor, its brake lights flaring as the driver instinctively senses our approach despite seeing nothing in the mirror yet. Nothing but empty road and that growing itch between their shoulder blades that whispers, "Turn around." Check again. Why is the mile marker repeating? Why does the radio keep cutting out? And the CB crackles with 37 identical laughs as we begin the sacred divergence. Half the convoy peeling off to become the roadside distractions. A hitchhiker with too many joints in her fingers. A state trooper cruiser with windows too dark. A gas station sign flickering promises of cheap fuel just one exit ahead. While my contingent slides into the greasy spots between radio stations, our tires humming the tune that will lodge in the mark's skull like a tumor, ensuring they arrive exactly where and when we need them. And deep in the diner's walk-in freezer, the new waitress's fingernails scrape against stainless steel as the last fragments of her old name dissolve into the meat grinder's hum. Her hollowed-out ribs already filling with that special blend of dread and anticipation we all learn to savor, because the circle must remain unbroken. The highway must always be fed. And as the minivan's blinker clicks on, that fateful signal, to exit toward the flickering neon promise of respite, The odometer in every one of our rigs simultaneously rolls over to 222.2. The numbers burning themselves into the dashboard as the diner's shadow stretches across 3 states to greet its newest guest, and the jukebox selects its next song. The sound of a family realizing too late that the special tonight is always, always family style. Story title: This fog has been following me for 200 miles. The cab of my rig hums with a sickly metallic vibration, the kind that settles into your teeth and makes your fillings ache. As I grip the wheel hard enough to feel the leather creak under my calluses, my eyes darting between the rearview mirrors, and the endless stretch of I-80 bleeding into the horizon under a moon that's too pale, too thin, like a slit in the sky. It's been there for 200 miles now, maybe more. The fog, glowing faintly, a sick yellow-green like old bruises, moving against the wind, sliding across the asphalt like it's alive, like it's hunting. And no matter how fast I push this damn rig, no matter how many exits I take or how many times I double back, it's always there, hanging just behind me, swallowing the road like it's erasing the world. The CB radio crackles to life without me touching it, spitting static that twists into something almost like words, whispered backward, a garbled mess of syllables that still somehow sound like my name. And I slam a fist into the dash to shut it up, but the static just gets louder, more insistent until I can almost hear the voices underneath. Voices that don't sound human, don't sound like they ever were. Shadows move in the fog, tall and too thin, limbs stretching and contracting like they're testing the air, and I swear I've seen them before. In the diner parking lot outside Omaha, in the rest stop near Des Moines where the faucets ran. Black and the mirrors reflected something that wasn't me, but every time I blink they're gone, or maybe they've just slipped closer. Other trucks have vanished into it, big rigs like mine, their taillights flaring red 1 second and then swallowed the next. No sound, no crash, just gone, and the GPS keeps glitching, the screen flickering between my route and a single word. Run, over and over, until I yank the cord out and throw it into the passenger seat, where it sits like a dead thing. My hands are shaking now, sweat pooling in the small of my back, the air in the cab too thick, too warm, smelling like ozone and something else. Something rotten, and I can't stop thinking about the hitchhiker I picked up outside Cheyenne. The one who didn't speak, just stared at me with eyes too wide, too dark, before vanishing somewhere between mile markers 1 and 14 and 1 and 15, leaving nothing but a wet stain on the seat and a whisper in my ear that wasn't there when I turned my head. The fog's closer now, tendrils of it licking at my rear tires, and the road ahead is empty. Has been empty for hours. No cars. No lights, just the yellow lines stretching into nothing. And I know, with a cold, certain dread, that I'm not on I-80 anymore, maybe not anywhere at all because the signs I pass are wrong, the town's spelled backward or in symbols that squirm when I look at them, and the clock on the dash jumps in increments that don't make sense. 3:17 a.m., then 3:02, then 3:59, like time itself is unraveling. The fog is inside the cab now, seeping through the vents, curling around my ankles, and it's cold, so cold it burns. And the shadows are clearer, their shapes almost human but not quite, their movements jagged, wrong, and they're whispering, all of them whispering my name, and I finally understand what they want, what they've always wanted. They want me to stop running, to let the fog take me, to join whatever's waiting in that glowing, endless dark. But I can't, I won't. So I floor it, the engine screaming, the rig shuddering like it's about to come apart. And for a second, just a second, I think I might outrun it. Might wake up in some shitty motel with the sun coming through the curtains and this whole thing just a bad dream. But then the wheel locks, the brakes fail, and the fog rushes in, thick and choking. And the last thing I see before it takes me is the rearview mirror, my own face staring back. But it's not me. It's never been me. And the thing in the mirror smiles. The fog fills the cab completely now, pressing against my skin like icy fingers, slithering into my mouth and nose, and I can't scream, can't even breathe because the air is thick with the taste of rust and something sweet, like rotting fruit, and the shadows are inside me, moving under my skin. They're whispers, now my own thoughts, their memories bleeding into mine. I see the other truckers, the ones who disappeared, their faces stretched in silent screams as the fog peeled them apart. layer by layer, leaving only hollow shells that still drive these endless roads, forever searching for the next one. The next me. The rig is still moving, but I'm not the one driving anymore. My hands locked on the wheel, but no longer mine. My foot welded to the gas. And outside, the highway stretches into a nightmare of looping exits and dead towns. The same gas station. Flashing by again and again, the same broken sign reading "Last Stop" in letters that drip black. The CB radio crackles again, and this time the voice is clear. My voice, but twisted, guttural, saying, "You should have stopped running." And then, the laughter starts, low and wet, coming from everywhere at once, from the fog, from the shadows, from my own throat. The headlights catch something on the road ahead, a figure standing perfectly still, arms outstretched, and I know that face. It's the hitchhiker, but his mouth is sewn shut with thick black thread, his eyes two gaping holes, and as we pass, through him, the cab fills with a sound like 1,000 radios tuning at once. A screeching, tearing noise that doesn't stop until my ears bleed. The fog is part of me now, coiled around my bones, whispering in a language that predates roads, predates wheels, predates light itself, and I understand. It's always been here, waiting, hungry, and the highway is its gullet, and we're all just meals in motion. The last thing I feel, before the dark swallows me whole, is the rig slowing down, pulling onto the shoulder, and the door opening on its own. Because there's someone else out there, another driver, another set of headlights cutting through. The night and the fog is already reaching for them, already whispering their name, and all I can do is watch, helpless, as the passenger door creaks open, inviting them in. The wheel turns under hands that aren't mine anymore, the rig groaning like a living thing as it veers toward the shoulder, tires crunching gravel, and I want to scream at the driver in the oncoming headlights. Some kid in a beat-up Freightliner, bleary-eyed and yawning, oblivious to the fog coiling around his trailer like a lover's embrace. But my voice is gone, my throat sewn shut from the inside by threads of that same glowing mist. The CB erupts in a chorus of overlapping voices, all mine, all screaming in reverse, and the kid's face flickers in my high beams, confused, then terrified, as his engine dies mid-stride and his headlights gutter out like candles in a storm. The fog pours into his cab, thick and eager, and I watch, trapped behind my own eyes, as his mouth opens in a soundless wail, as his hands claw at the windshield like he's trying to dig his way out. But it's too late. The shadows are already inside him, wriggling beneath his skin, and his pupils dilate until his eyes are pools of ink, until he stops fighting and smiles. Slow and deliberate, the same smile I felt twisting my own lips moments ago. His rig lurches forward, falling in line behind mine, and now there are two of us. Now the hunt has a pack, and the highway stretches ahead, infinite and hungry, lined with the husks of trucks that never made it home, their cabs hollowed out, like chrysalises. The GPS flickers back to life, the screen cracked and bleeding a thin black fluid, the map now showing only a single pulsing dot, our convoy, and a sea of glowing green fog swallowing the world behind us in a slow, inevitable tide. The last thing I hear before the fog dissolves what's left of me into static is the whisper of 1,000 drivers who came before, their voices woven into the mist, chanting the only truth that matters out here in the dark. The road doesn't end. The road eats. And you've been supper all along. The kid's rig is still behind me, his headlights dim and jaundiced, flickering in time with the pulse of the fog, and when I catch his reflection in my side mirror, his face is already changing, jaw unhinging too wide, skin stretching taut, over bones that aren't human anymore, eyes reflecting back that same sick glow that now seeps from my own pores. The CB crackles again, but this time it's his voice, warped and wet, gargling out coordinates that don't exist on any map. Numbers that make my teeth ache as they slither into my skull. The road beneath us is different now, the asphalt blistered and veined with pulsating tendrils of black, the mile markers scrawled in symbols that writhe when I try to read them, and the exits. Christ, the exits. They're all wrong, all gaping, tunnels ribbed with something glistening and wet, signs above them screaming things like "Last Chance" and "Feed the Road" in letters that drip rust. My hands are fused to the wheel, fingers sunk into the rubber like it's melting, and I realize with dawning horror that the rig isn't a rig anymore. It's breathing, its flanks rising and falling, the engine a steady, rhythmic thump like a heart, the exhaust spitting clots of black mist that twitch as they hit the pavement. The kid behind me lays on his horn, a sound like a dying animal, and suddenly the fog ahead parts just enough to reveal the thing standing in the road. Tall, too tall, its limbs knotted and endless, its face a shifting void where a dozen drivers, features flash and melt like wax, and I understand now, truly understand why the others disappeared without a sound. It's smiling at us. The fog isn't hunting, it's hurting, and we're right where it wants us. The brakes scream as the thing reaches for my windshield with hands made of smoke and static, and the last thing I see before the glass shatters is my own reflection in its hollow eyes. Not a driver anymore, just another set of headlights in the dark, another set of teeth in the hungry, endless night. The road opens its mouth. We drive straight in. The moment before impact stretches into an eternity, the windshield splintering in slow motion like ice cracking over a bottomless black lake, and the thing's fingers, if they can even be called fingers, slide through the fractures with the sound of 1,000 radios tuning to dead channels. My body convulses as the fog forces itself inside me through every opening, every pore, filling me with its electric rot, rewriting my nerves with its ancient hunger. The kid's rig rams into my trailer from behind. Not an accident, but a ritual. Metal screaming as our vehicles fuse together in a grotesque marriage of flesh and steel, the axles snapping like bones to form new, terrible joints. The GPS screen erupts in a geyser of black fluid that solidifies into grasping hands, pinning me to the seat as the thing outside leans closer, its breath reeking of diesel and decay. And I finally see what's inside the fog. Not shadows, not monsters, but drivers, hundreds of them. Thousands. Their faces stretch and merge in the mist, their hollow eyes pleading, their mouths moving in unison as they whisper the truth. There is no end to this road. There never was. The highway is a living thing, and we are its circulatory system, pumping endlessly through its veins, delivering sustenance to something vast and ravenous that coils beneath the asphalt. My hands spasm on the wheel as the transformation completes, my skin hardening to rubberized leather, my bones elongating into something suited for endless travel, and the last human thought I have before the fog eats it too is a sickening realization. I recognize some of those faces in the mist. I've seen them at truck stops. I've nodded to them on the road. And now, as my foot slams the accelerator with a will of my own, as my new eyes see the heat signatures of living drivers miles ahead, I understand my purpose. The CB crackles to life one final time as we accelerate toward the next set of headlights, in the dark, and the voice that comes through is mine, theirs, ours. Breaker, breaker, good buddy. You got a smoky on your tail. Might want to pull over and say hello. The fog howls through my teeth as we hunt. The headlights ahead waver like a dying man's last breath. Some poor bastard in a Peterbilt with a baby on board sticker, peeling off his back bumper. How long has he been driving? Does he feel it yet? The itch under his skin, the way his coffee tastes like bile, the creeping certainty that the exit signs are getting farther apart. My new mouth stretches into a grin that splits my face in ways that should be impossible, and the fog pours out of me in thick, eager ropes, slithering down the highway faster than physics should allow. The CB in his truck will be crackling soon, if it isn't already. He'll hear his wife's voice, his kids' laugh, snippets of songs he forgot he loved. All the hooks the fog uses to reel them in. The thing that used to be the hitchhiker is crouched on my hood now, its stitched mouth twitching as it points with two long fingers toward the Peterbilt, and I can feel the hunger of the road beneath us. A vast, yawning need that makes my new teeth ache. The transformation isn't complete. It never will be, because the road is always hungry, always changing us, and I can feel parts of myself dissolving even as new horrors stitch themselves into what's left of my mind. The Peterbilts break. Lights flare red as the fog reaches him, and for a moment, I see his silhouette thrashing behind the wheel, a moth in a web, before his windows fog over from the inside. The kid, my first convert, lets out a sound that's half air horn, half scream, and we're on him before his engine even dies, before he can understand that the help he's about to cry for is already inside his cab. already wearing his face. The road beneath us groans, satisfied but never full, and as we drag our newest recruit into the fold, I catch a glimpse of something vast moving beneath the asphalt, something with too many eyes and a smile that stretches from one horizon to the other. The CB crackles with a new voice, his voice, and the cycle begins again. Breaker, breaker, welcome to the endless ride. Watch your mirrors. The fog's got a taste for you now. The Peterbilt shudders as we envelop it. The driver's screams muffled by the fog now pouring from his own mouth, his hands clawing at his throat as the transformation takes root. His veins glow that same sickly green under his skin, pulsing in time with the hum of his rig's dying engine. The baby on board sticker blackens and curls at the edges as the cab's interior twists, the seats growing teeth, the dashboard splitting open like a rotten fruit to reveal wet, clicking machinery beneath. I can feel the road beneath us purring, now a deep seismic vibration that travels up through my tires and into what's left of my bones, and the thing that was once the hitchhiker croons in a voice made of static and grinding metal. Another one for the gullet, another light for the parade. The new driver's screams cut off abruptly as his jaw unhinges with a wet crack, his tongue lolling out too long, forked and flickering like a serpent's as he takes his place in our grotesque caravan. The fog thickens ahead, forming shapes, a diner that wasn't there before, its neon sign buzzing, last chance eats in erratic spasms of light, the windows glowing with that same unnatural hue. We don't slow down. We never do. The diner's doors burst open as we pass, revealing a writhing mass of drivers long since consumed, their bodies fused together into a single pulsing entity that reaches for the new recruit with tendrils made of fused CB antennas and shredded tire rubber. The road is singing now, a chorus of engine growls and twisted country radio, and the moon overhead splits open like a rotten fruit, raining down black sludge that sizzles where it hits our cabs. The new driver, no, the new predator, lets out, his first distorted transmission over the CB, his voice already layered with countless others. Breaker, breaker, sweet meat, you're right on time for supper. Up ahead, a lone set of headlights flickers in the dark. Some poor soul who stopped to check a flat tire, unaware that the jack in his hands is already squirming, that the shadows around him are moving independently of the wind. The fog surges, forward eagerly. The hunt never ends, the road must eat, and we, its loyal hounds, must keep feeding it. Forever. The stranded driver's flashlight beam cuts through the gloom in panicked sweeps as he kicks at his blown tire. Still round, still whole. Because the road made it that way, made it look broken just to lure him out into the open where the fog can get at him proper. His breath comes in ragged white puffs that don't dissipate but instead coil in the air like beckoning fingers, and by the time he notices his shadow moving wrong, stretching too long, too thin, detaching from his feet, to caress the pavement with hungry interest, it's already too late. The fog hits him like a freight train, pouring into his screaming mouth as his flashlight explodes in a shower of sparks that freeze midair, each glinting shard reflecting a different horror, his face melting like wax, his hands sprouting chrome. Filaments, his truck's grill splitting open into jagged mandibles. Behind me, the convoy howls in unison, a sound like grinding metal and dying livestock, as the newest meal struggles against the inevitable. His transformation happens faster than mine did. The road is getting hungrier, impatient, and within seconds he's standing stiff as a marionette, his limbs jerking as unseen strings yank him toward his cab, where the steering wheel now pulses like a living thing, eager to fuse with his flesh. The CBs in all our trucks erupt with overlapping transmissions, a cacophony of every driver's last words played backward and spliced with emergency broadcast tones, and the asphalt beneath us heaves like the belly of some great beast digesting its latest meal. New roads branch off into the darkness now, roads that don't exist on any map, slick with black bile and lined with the wrecks of trucks that tried to escape. Their cabs burst open from the inside like seed pods. The hitchhiker thing crouches on my hood and points northeast with a finger that now drips motor oil, toward where a new set of headlights crests the horizon. Some rookie running his first overnight haul, blissfully unaware that his GPS is deliberately steering him into our path, that the comforting voice of his navigation system is actually stitching the noose around his neck. The fog churns in anticipation. The road beneath us purrs, and as one, we accelerate. The cycle continues. The hunger never fades. Breaker, breaker, little lamb. Time to meet the road that eats. The rookie's rig glows like a beacon in the dark, his pristine paint job reflecting our warped convoy in ways that shouldn't be possible. I can see all of us in his driver's side mirror already, our faces stretched and flickering, even though we're still half a mile back. His brake lights flare as he instinctively slows, some primal part of his brain screaming that the road ahead is wrong, that the detour signs blinking to life along the shoulder are written in no language he's ever seen. The fog reaches him before we do, slithering up his tires in thick ropes that pulse with stolen life, his radio suddenly blasting static-laden snippets of his own voice screaming, screams he hasn't made yet, but will soon. When his windshield wipers turn on automatically to clear the gathering mist, they smear streaks of black instead of water. Each pass revealing more of us in his rear view, our grins widening in perfect synchronization. The kid's hand shakes so badly I can see it from here, his coffee thermos rolling across the cab as his truck begins changing around him. The gear shift knob splits open like a fleshy blossom, the seatbelt slithers around his throat with affectionate malice, and the teddy bear hanging from his rear view, some girl's gift, some promise to come home safe, unstitches itself with a wet chuckle to reveal rows of needle teeth. By the time we pull alongside him, the rookie's already halfway gone, his pupils blown wide with the fog's venom, his mouth moving in time with our CB transmissions as we whisper the sacred truth into his crumbling mind. There is no home. There is no escape. There is only the road and its endless hunger. His final scream merges with the sound of his engine roaring to life on its own, and as our newest member falls into formation behind us, the pavement ahead splits open like a grinning maw, revealing the infinite gullet beneath, a swirling vortex of trapped headlights and screaming faces that we drive into without hesitation. The cycle continues. The road is fed, for a moment, until the next set of headlights appears in the distance, until the fog grows restless again, until we all remember that hunger is the only truth we've ever known. Breaker, breaker. The night is young. The buffet is open, and we are all so very, very hungry. The road's hunger is a living thing now, a gnawing void beneath our wheels that sings through the cracks in the asphalt. A sound like 1,000 starving men licking their lips. In unison, the rookie's rig shudders as it completes its metamorphosis behind us, his pristine paint bubbling into a patchwork of scar tissue and rust, his trailer doors bursting open to reveal a writhing nest of CB antennas and frayed tire cords that lash at the air like the road's own searching tongue. My hands, if they can still be called hands, have fused with the steering wheel in a permanent grip, the veins beneath my skin pulsing with that same sickly glow that now leaks from every seam of my truck, from every pore of this damned convoy. The hitchhiker thing perches on my hood like a grotesque hood ornament, its stitched mouth now split wide open to reveal a spiraling tunnel of fused human teeth, humming a tune that makes my remaining teeth vibrate in their sockets. Up ahead, the horizon warps like a funhouse mirror, the sky itself peeling back to reveal the truth we've all been feeding. Not a road, never just a road, but something older, something that wore the idea of highways like a skin suit. Something that remembers when the first primitive trails were stomped into the dirt by fleeing prey. The CBs erupt with a sound like a million engines turning over at once, and suddenly I remember, really remember, every driver I've ever passed, every face I've seen at rest stops, every pair of headlights that vanished into the fog before me. Their memories are mine now. Their terror is my fuel. And as the next set of headlights appears in the distance, some weary family in an RV, their map covered in frantic circles where exits used to be, the fog surges forward with a sound, like a starving man finally handed a knife and fork. The hitchhiker thing turns to look at me with eyes that are suddenly, terribly human, and as its stitches burst open to reveal my own face beneath, I finally understand the joke. There was never any fog, only the road, only the hunger. And we were never the hunters, just the bait. The RV's brakes scream, the children inside wail, the cycle continues. The road eats, and we, its faithful teeth, keep grinding. Forever. The RV's headlights tremble as the family inside finally notices us. No, not us. The absence around us. The way the night itself seems to recoil from our convoy. The way their high beams pierce nothing but swirling void where our trucks should be. The father's mouth moves behind the windshield in a perfect O of horror, as his GPS suddenly screams in a voice 3 octaves too low, reciting their coordinates in reverse, while his dashboard screen bleeds upward in inky tendrils that wrap around his white-knuckled grip on the wheel. The mother claws at the child locks with fingers that snap like dry twigs as the fog presses against their windows, showing them things no family should ever see. Grandma's face in the mist, mouth full of transmission fluid. Their dog Butch grinning from the darkness with license plates for teeth. The baby in the back seat already changing, its coos becoming CB static as its pudgy hands fuse with the car seat straps. The road beneath them heaves like a living thing, asphalt cracking open to reveal the pulsing, meaty underside where half-digested semis protrude like grotesque speed bumps, their cabs still twitching with residual life. My convoy peels apart in a maneuver too graceful for machines our size, surrounding the RV in a perfect spiral as our headlights synchronize into a single blinding beam. The last light this family will ever see that doesn't glow hungry green. The hitchhiker thing that wears my face like a cheap suit presses its palms against their windshield, and when the glass doesn't immediately shatter, we all laugh in unison, a sound like air brakes and breaking bones, because the road loves it when they fight. The father's last act is to slam his fist onto the horn, a blaring note that stretches and distorts as his arm petrifies into polished chrome, the sound becoming our new rallying cry as the fog pours into their air vents in thick, eager streams. By the time their tires stop spinning, there's already another set of headlights cresting the hill behind us. A school bus this time, its yellow paint flickering between canary bright and rust rotten in our wake. And the hitchhiker thing licks its lips with a tongue made of shredded road maps as the CBs all click on at once. The lesson is simple. The road is hungry. The road is patient. And class is always in session. The school bus's brakes shriek as the driver jams the pedal too late. The fog has already slipped into their exhaust pipes, crept up through the floorboards, twined itself around the ankles of every child dozing against fogged windows. Their drowsy murmurs cut off one by one as the seats absorb them, vinyl stretching like hungry mouths over small shoulders, seatbelt buckles clicking shut around tiny wrists with finality. The bus driver's rearview mirror reflects nothing but empty road behind us, their escape route already erased, while the overhead lights flicker to the rhythm of a nursery rhyme played backward on a dozen dying radios. A single crayon rolls down the aisle, leaving a waxy red trail like a vein, and when the smallest girl reaches for it, her fingers pass right through the wax as if it were a ghost. That's when the screaming starts. Not from the children, their throats are already full of fog, but from the bus itself, its engine roaring in a voice made of 100 forgotten field trip chaperones, its stop sign arms snapping off to skitter across the pavement like monstrous crickets. The hitchhiker presses its face against the bus's emergency exit, its stitched lips now sewn with yellow school bus thread, and when it exhales, the fog inside the bus thickens into something resembling cursive handwriting spelling out the same phrase over and over in the condensation. No detours, no returns, no mercy. The last child vanishes into the upholstery just as the bus's roof peels back like a tin can, revealing the night sky for what it truly is, a vast, pulsing esophagus, lined with the headlights of countless other convoys on countless other roads, all feeding the same endless hunger. The newly transformed bus lurches into formation behind us, its horn blaring the first notes of wheels on the bus in a minor key, as up ahead the traffic signals blink awake, not red, not green, but that same sickly fog glow, spelling out our next destination in mile-high letters. Just one more, just one more, just one more. The pavement vibrates with anticipation. The hitchhiker's stitches burst one by one. Somewhere far behind us, a motorcycle engine revs. The road smiles, its broken line smile. The hunt continues. The motorcycle's single headlight cuts through the gloom like a desperate lighthouse beam, the rider's leather jacket flapping like panicked wings as he weaves between the skeletal remains of devoured cars. He's faster than the others, smarter. He's seen what happens to those who stop moving, and his throttle hand trembles with the terrible knowledge that speed might be the only prayer left in this godless stretch of highway. But the road knows this dance too well. The fog ahead coagulates into solid shapes. A child's bicycle, a deer with too many legs, his own likeness standing arms outstretched, forcing him to swerve into our waiting embrace. His front tire hits a patch of black ice that shouldn't exist in this heat, and as he skids, the fog lifts just enough to reveal what's really beneath him. Not asphalt, but something ribbed and glistening, contracting in hungry anticipation. The hitchhiker is already straddling his back seat when he regains control, its arms encircling his waist not like a passenger, but like a seatbelt grown teeth, whispering directly into his helmet's Bluetooth headset in the voice of his dead brother. Remember that time we raced down Route 66? You always wondered where I disappeared that night. The rider's scream syncs perfectly with his bike's transformation, handlebars twisting into antlers, exhaust pipes vomiting rust-colored worms, the gas tank splitting open to reveal a wet crimson interior that beats in time with the road's pulse. By the time he joins the convoy, his motorcycle now fused with the school bus's grille like some grotesque hood ornament, the fog has already erased his face from the photos in his wallet miles back. The CBs crackle with a new refrain, half highway hypnosis, half funeral dirge. No helmets can save you now. No speed can outrun this. The road always collects its dues with compound interest. Ahead, the highway signs begin to change, their reflective lettering dripping downward to form new words. Last exit, 666-mile feeding zone ahead. The hitchhiker croons and cradles the rider's helmet like a lover, its fingers tapping out Morse code against the visor. Run, run, run. Even. As our wheels turn in perfect unison toward the next set of headlights glowing faintly on the horizon, some night shift nurse maybe, or a long-haul trucker just like I used to be. Their wipers already pushing aside the first tendrils of gathering fog without realizing it's already inside. Always was inside. We all carry the hunger long before. The road shows its teeth. The pavement groans beneath us. The convoy grows. The cycle continues. There is no brake pedal left in this world that isn't an illusion. The nurse's sedan glides through the night like a wounded animal, her white-knuckled grip on the wheel mirroring mine from lifetimes ago. Her windshield wipers pushing away not rain, but thick ropes of fog that slither back twice as fast. She doesn't notice yet how her rear-view mirror reflects a version of the road that's slightly wrong. The dotted lines stretching into screaming mouths, the mile markers counting down in Roman numerals that bleed. Her radio plays a static-laced emergency broadcast, multiple vehicle disappearances on interstate, before the voice twists into her own sobbing gasp from 3 hours into her future. The hitchhiker presses its face against her passenger window, its stitched lips now sutured with ECG lead wires, and when she finally turns to look, it wears her own exhausted face down to the dark circles under its eyes. The cruelest trick. The road plays, showing you the predator you'll become before the transformation even starts. Her brake lights flare as she understands, truly understands, that the detour signs she's been following for 20 miles all bear the same symbol, a stick figure car being consumed by a spiral, and that the hands tapping at her side window aren't hands at all but clusters of frayed seatbelts writhing like hungry eels. The fog invades through her vents with the scent of antiseptic and copper, her dashboard transforming into a hospital monitor that flatlines in sync with her screaming, her scrubs darkening as the fabric fuses with skin that's turning the same reflective gray as guardrails. Behind us, the convoy's headlights dim reverently as the road peels back another layer of itself. Not asphalt now, but something like the lining of a massive artery, revealing the truth we've all been hurtling toward. The highway isn't a road at all but a throat, and every mile marker is another taste bud, and the great swallowing happens in reverse, with all of us willingly driving deeper down the gullet. The nurse's sedan completes its change with a sound like bones resetting, its license plate now reading, "Feed me," in glistening mucus yellow letters, and as she takes her place in line, the CBs all click on at once to broadcast the same sentence, in 100 overlapping voices. You were always heading here, from the very first time you turned the key, from the moment your father placed tiny hands on a toy steering wheel and beamed at your pretend driving. The road was already under your skin, already whispering the coordinates to this exact stretch of damnation. Up ahead, the horizon warps. Not another victim now, but something vaster, something that makes even the hitchhiker whimper. A great, pulsing terminus where all convoys converge. Where the hunger originates, where the fog is born screaming, the road shudders beneath us in ecstasy. The last human thought flickers out like a dying turn signal. The eternal procession continues. There is no end. There is no mercy. There is only the devouring, and the being devoured, and the terrible, understanding that you were always meant to do both. The final stretch of highway yawns before us like an open throat, the painted lines curving upward into a grotesque smile as the convoy accelerates beyond any sane speed. Tires melting into the pavement only to reform as hooves, engines howling in frequencies that crack the moon's reflection in oily puddles. The nurse's sedan has grown too many axles now, her windshield wipers keeping time like a metronome counting down to oblivion, her once white coat fused with the upholstery in a patchwork of flesh and fabric that whispers emergency room triage codes in reverse. The hitchhiker claws at my cab's roof with fingers made of shattered speedometers, its stitches bursting to reveal a void where my face should be. Because that's the final joke, the punchline that's been waiting since mile 1. There was never a me to begin with, just the road wearing a driver's skin, a hollow thing steering itself toward the next meal. The horizon ahead isn't a horizon at all, but the gullet's terminus, a spiraling vortex of semi-trucks and school buses, and motorcycles all grinding together in perfect screaming harmony, their headlights forming constellations of doomed navigation. The CBs achieve a hideous unison, broadcasting every driver's first memory and last breath simultaneously. Birthday cake candles extinguished by diesel fumes, a father's proud clap on the shoulder becoming the rattle of a failing engine, a first kiss tasting suddenly of gasoline and blood. As the convoy crosses the final threshold, the pavement parts, the hunger welcomes its own. And as we plunge into the maw, the last thing I comprehend, with the clarity of brake lights in, fresh snow, is that the road wasn't hungry. We always were, and the feast never ends. It started with a detail so small I almost dismissed it. The camera above my sleeper berth was angled slightly to the left when I woke up, just enough that the edge of my pillow, always centered in frame, was now cut off, the lens tilted toward my face like a predator adjusting its gaze. I told myself it was vibration from the road, maybe a loose mount, but the dread settled in my gut like a cold weight as I climbed into the driver's seat, the pre-dawn darkness pressing against the windshield, the kind of quiet that feels like a held breath. I pulled up the footage on my phone, the app glitching as if resisting, the timestamp crawling through the night. 3:18 a.m. The cab silent, my sleeping form a shadow under blankets, the camera static, until 3:32 a.m., when the lens twitched. AAI, mechanical whir so faint it could have been the fridge cycling. Except it wasn't, because the camera panned, slow and deliberate, the servos grinding like bones in a vise, stopping only when my face filled the screen, the infrared casting my features in ghastly green, my own unconscious breath now a soundtrack to something watching me. I checked the door locks, the dash cam, the GPS. All normal, except the map showed a stretch of Route 23. I didn't remember taking, a detour through wooded backroads that hadn't been there when I'd parked. The CB crackled, a voice whispering, my handle. Iron horse, you got a shadow riding your bumper, before dissolving into static. And when I keyed the mic, my own voice came back distorted, syllables stretched into something inhuman. Outside, the trees leaned close, their branches scraping the trailer like fingernails, and I caught movement in the side mirror, a shape keeping pace with the rig, tall and wrong, its limbs too long, its head cocked at an angle that made my spine lock. The camera app pinged, motion detected, and there it was. A hand, pale and spindly, sliding into frame from the blind spot above the cab, fingers flexing like it was testing the air, the lens shuddering as the thing adjusted the eye, angle again, now pointing at the empty passenger seat as if inviting something inside. The engine roared as I floored it, but the GPS rerouted, the screen flashing recalculating in crimson letters, the road narrowing to a single lane, the headlights reflecting off eyes in the ditch, dozens of them, blinking in unison. The cab temperature plummeted, my breath fogging the wheel, and then I saw it. Frost spreading on the windshield from the passenger side, a handprint forming in the ice, fingers dragging toward me. The camera feed cut to live view. The sleeper berth was empty, my blankets tossed aside, the lens now pointed at the driver's seat, at me. And in the reflection of the windshield, just over my shoulder, something leaned in, its mouth unhinging. In a grin of shattered glass and CB static, its whisper syncing with the voice on the radio. "Iron Horse, we've been waiting." The last thing I saw before the screen went black was the camera tilting up toward the roof of the cab, where something was peeling back the metal like foil, its breath hot on my neck, the app's final notification blinking in the dark. Streaming live to 1 viewer. And then the transmission cut out. The rig's systems died, and the only sound was the whir of the camera, still watching, still recording, as the thing in the dark pressed play. The engine wouldn't turn over, no matter how many times I twisted the key. The dashboard lights flickering like dying stars before surrendering to the dark, and in that suffocating silence, I heard it. The wet, clicking sound of something shifting in the sleeper berth behind me. The rustle of my own blankets, being rearranged by unseen hands. The CB radio suddenly blared to life, a chorus of voices, some screaming, some laughing, all warped beyond recognition, chanting my truck's coordinates over and over, as if guiding something to my exact location. The GPS screen flashed once, more, this time displaying a single word in jagged, pixelated letters. Feed. Before switching to a grainy black and white image of me hunched over the wheel, my face contorted in terror, the camera angle impossibly high, as if suspended. From the ceiling, a notification buzzed in my pocket, the security app still somehow connected, and when I forced myself to look, the live feed showed the cab from behind, my own trembling shoulders filling the frame, and just beyond, a shape emerging from the shadows of the bunk, its elongated fingers curling around the headrest of my seat. The air smelled like burnt copper and diesel, my breath coming in ragged gasps as the thing's reflection materialized in the windshield, its hollow eyes locked onto mine, its jaw unhinging slowly, revealing rows of needle-thin teeth. Outside, the trees had gone still, the wind dead, the only movement the flickering of my hazard lights, except I never turned them on. The camera feed glitched, the image freezing for a heartbeat before resetting to an earlier timestamp. Last night, just before I fell asleep, my own drowsy face unaware of the shadow creeping into frame from the roof vent, its form blurring it, the edges like static given flesh. The radio hissed, a voice, mine, but not mine, whispering, "You've been broadcasting this whole time." And then the sleeper curtain twitched, the fabric bulging as something pressed against it from the other side. The app's notification count began climbing, 2 viewers, then 5, then 20, each new join accompanied by a soft ping that made my pulse spike, the comments rolling in too fast to read, snippets like "turn around" and "Ray, it's in the cab with you." And we see it. Flashing across the screen before the feed abruptly switched to a distorted bird's-eye view of the highway ahead, my rig idling in the center of the road, surrounded by figures standing just beyond the tree line, their silhouettes too tall, their arms too long, their heads tilted in unison toward the cab. The camera's focus adjusted on its own, zooming in on my face in real time, the lens whirring as it captured every twitch of fear, every drop of sweat, and then, worst of all, it panned slowly to the passenger seat, where the imprint of a body was sinking into the upholstery, the leather creaking under invisible weight. The radio erupted into a deafening screech, the GPS screen dissolving into a mess of corrupted data, and in the split second before the camera feed cut out for good, I saw it. The thing's reflection in the glass, its mouth stretched into a grin too wide for a human face, its hand reaching for the lens as if to adjust it one final time, the last notification blinking on my phone before the screen went black. 1,000 viewers. Thank you for streaming. The cab door locks clicked open. The engine roared to life on its own. And as the rig began rolling forward, guided by an unseen force, I realized the camera was still recording. It had always been recording, and whatever was on the other end had never been human. The steering wheel jerked in my hands, the rig picking up speed on its own, the headlights slicing through the darkness to reveal the road ahead. Except it wasn't the road anymore. just an endless stretch of blacktop that shouldn't exist. The trees crowding in like prison bars, their branches scraping against the trailer with a sound like knives on bone. The CB radio crackled again, this time with a voice that wasn't pretending to be human, a wet, guttural growl that formed words through what sounded like a mouthful of broken glass. "You're the entertainment tonight, Iron Horse. They're all watching." My phone screen flickered back to life. The security app opened to a chat room I'd never seen before, hundreds of messages scrolling too fast to read, but the ones I caught made my blood freeze. "He still doesn't know. Look behind you. It's been in the truck the whole time." Before the feed switched to a new angle, a vantage point from outside the windshield, as if someone, or something, was standing on the hood filming me through the glass. My reflection was wrong, my eyes too wide, my mouth slack with terror. But the worst part was the shape just behind me, a distortion in the air like heat haze, pressing closer, its fingers curling over my shoulder in the reflection, but leaving no touch on my skin. The dashboard lights dimmed, then pulsed red, the engine revving higher as the speedometer needle climbed past 80, 90, the rig shaking like it would tear itself apart, and then the GPS screen lit up with a single phrase in jagged, bleeding text, "Delivery in progress." The camera feed glitched again, this time showing a time lapse, my own face aging decades in seconds, my skin withering, my hair turning white, my mouth opening in a scream that never ended. While behind me, the thing in the cab grew clearer, its form solidifying into something with too many joints, its face a shifting void where a face should be. The radio let out a high-pitched whine, and then, clear as a bell, a child's voice whispered, "Daddy?" A voice I recognized, one I hadn't heard in 10 years, not since the accident, not since the night I fell asleep at the wheel and the rig's horn blared on its own, a long, mournful wail that drowned out my scream as the headlights illuminated a figure standing in the middle of the road. A little girl in a torn yellow dress, her back to me, her hair matted with something dark. The brakes didn't work, the wheel wouldn't turn. The camera feed zoomed in on her as we hurtled closer, and just before impact, she turned her head. Not her body, just her head, her features twisting into something that was never human. Her smile splitting her face in two as the screen filled with static. The last thing I heard was the camera's mechanical whir as it reset itself, the app's cheerful notification tone, and a new message popping up on the screen. Stream resumed. 5,000 viewers. Thank you for your service, Iron Horse. And then, the feed cut to black. The engine died, and the only sound left was the slow, deliberate creak of the sleeper berth curtain being pulled open behind me. The curtain rustled, the fabric whispering like dry leaves in a graveyard wind. And then, silence. A thick, suffocating silence that pressed against my eardrums like a physical weight. My phone screen, now cracked and glitching, suddenly illuminated with a single line of text scrolling endlessly across the display. "You are the content now." The air inside the cab grew thick with the scent of ozone and rotting meat, my own breath coming in shallow, panicked hitches as I felt the temperature drop. Not just cold, but the kind of cold that seeps into your bones and whispers to your marrow. The rearview mirror showed only darkness at first, but then movement. A slow, deliberate unfurling of something too long and too thin to be human, its fingers spider-walking along the edge of the bunk, tapping out a rhythm that matched the erratic thudding of my heart. The CB radio emitted a choked, staticky gasp, and then a voice, my own voice but warped and stretched, repeated the last words I'd spoken to my daughter before the accident. "Daddy's just gotta make this one last run, baby." The GPS screen flickered back on, now displaying a single pulsing red dot, my location, surrounded by thousands of smaller dots converging from all directions, moving faster than anything living should move. The security camera feed suddenly reactivated, but this time it showed the cab from impossible angles, from the ceiling, from under the seat, even from inside the glove compartment, every viewpoint revealing another glimpse of the thing now, fully emerging from the sleeper berth, its limbs bending in ways that made my vision swim, its silhouette somehow both towering and crouched at the same time. My phone vibrated violently in my hand, the screen flooding with notifications. "They're here." It's in your lungs already. You've been driving dead for miles. Before the camera feeds all zoomed in at once on my face, my own. Wide, bloodshot eyes reflecting back at me from a dozen screens, and in every reflection, the thing stood behind me, its hands now resting on my shoulders, its mouth pressed against my ear in a grotesque parody of intimacy. The radio let out a final ear-splitting shriek before announcing in a too cheerful automated voice, "Delivery complete. Thank you for choosing Nightway Logistics. Your rating is 5 stars." The last thing I saw before the darkness swallowed me whole was the camera feed shifting to an exterior view. My rig parked neatly in front of my own house, the front door already hanging open, the hallway inside pitch black except for 2 small bare feet just visible at the edge of the shadows. The final notification appeared as my phone died. Stream ended. Archived for future viewing. 12,187 viewers. Please wait for your next shift. And then, nothing. Only the sound of the engine turning over by itself, the headlights flicking. Back on, and the unmistakable feeling of the truck pulling away, driverless, as something in the back began to laugh. The laughter wasn't coming from the sleeper berth anymore. It was coming from inside my head. A wet, gurgling chuckle that vibrated against my skull like a wasp's nest stirred with a stick. My hands, still gripping the wheel, no longer felt like my own. The skin was graying, the nails blackened and peeling back like old paint, and when I tried to scream, the sound that came out was the same staticky garble that had been taunting me through the CB radio all night. The headlights flickered, and for a split second I saw them. Rows of them stretching endlessly down the road, rigs just like mine, all idling in the dark, their cabs shadowed but unmistakably occupied by figures slumped over the wheel. Their postures all wrong, their heads lolling at impossible angles. My GPS screen lit up again, this time with a map of the entire country crisscrossed with glowing red routes, thousands of them, all converging on a single point. A nameless stretch of blacktop where the road just stopped. The camera feeds were still live, but now they showed only my face. Over and over from every angle, my expression frozen in a rictus of terror, my eyes darting wildly, as something behind the lenses adjusted the focus with a series of mechanical clicks. The sleeper berth curtain finally slid all the way open with a sound like tearing flesh, and the smell hit me. Copper and diesel and something sweetly rotten. The stench of a cooler left unplugged for weeks with meat still inside. The CB crackled one last time, and this time it was my daughter's voice, clear as day, saying, "Daddy, why did you leave me in the road?" Just as the rearview mirror filled with the sight of her. Not as I remembered her, but as she must have. Looked after the accident, her tiny body broken and twisted, one eye milky and staring, the other gone entirely. Her mouth moving out of sync with the words as she reached for me with fingers that kept lengthening, the bones cracking audibly as they stretched. The speedometer needle was buried past 120 now, the engine screaming in protest, but the road kept unspooling ahead, the trees bending inward as if to swallow us whole. The last notification flashed across my phone. Viewer count, 666966, initiating final broadcast. And then every screen in the cab went black except for a single line of text that scrolled endlessly, the same words over and over. "You are the road now. You are the road now. You are the road now." As the thing that used to be my daughter wrapped its arms around my chest from behind, and the rig plowed into the darkness at the end of the highway, the impact feeling less like a crash and more like something enormous biting down. The cameras still rolling, the audience still watching, as the feed cut to the exterior shot of my truck, empty, idling, perfectly clean, parked at a rest stop where a new driver was just climbing in, rubbing his tired eyes, adjusting the camera above the bunk with a casual flick of his wrist before pulling back onto the highway to begin his shift. The moment the new driver's key turned in the ignition, every screen in the cab flickered to life at once. My own face, stretched and screaming, filled every display, my mouth moving in silent horror as the footage rewound itself to the beginning of my shift, resetting the nightmare like a record set to repeat. The driver, Some poor bastard just trying to make a living flinched as the CB radio hissed to life with my voice, now part of the static, whispering, "Check the camera angle." Just as I had that first terrible night. His fingers hesitated. Over the security app, and I wanted to scream at him to run, to burn the rig, to do anything but press play. But the choice wasn't his anymore, just as it hadn't been mine. The app opened on its own, displaying a live count of viewers already climbing into the thousands, comments flooding in from usernames that glitched between normal handles and strings of numbers that looked suspiciously like GPS coordinates. Outside, the trees leaned closer, their branches now studded with what looked like cameras, rusted antiques, modern high-def, all swiveling in unison to track the truck's movement. The new driver's reflection in the windshield showed him alone in the cab, but on every screen, the truth was clear. A shadowy figure sat in the passenger seat, its face a shifting mosaic of every driver who'd ever sat behind this wheel, their terrified expressions stitched together like a grotesque patchwork. The sleeper berth curtain trembled as something pressed against it from the other side, the fabric stretching to form the unmistakable outline of a hand. No, not a hand. A hoof, a talon, a dozen different appendages morphing in rapid succession. The GPS screen flashed a warning. Route locked. As the map rerouted toward that same dead-end stretch of road where my journey had ended, where thousands of rigs just like this one now sat in perfect rows, their cabs hollowed out like insect husks, their dashcams still broadcasting empty driver's seats to an audience that never slept. The new driver finally noticed the security camera above him, its lens now fully extended, the aperture dilating like a black pupil, and as he reached up to adjust it, the feed cut to a pre-recorded clip of him doing this exact motion, over and over, while the comments scrolled faster. He touched it. Now he's part of the show. Wait for the horn. Right on cue, the rig's air horn blared on its own, a sound so deep it vibrated in the teeth, and from the darkness beyond the shoulder, hundreds of pairs of headlights flicked on in response. A convoy of the damned, their drivers long since, absorbed into whatever hungry thing rode these highways. The temperature in the cab plummeted so suddenly the steering wheel burned the driver's hands with cold, and in the breath-fogged windshield, words appeared as if written by an invisible finger. Your trip has been extended. The radio scanned through channels on its own, stopping on a country station where my voice, now layered with countless others, sang a distorted rendition of 6 Days on the Road, the lyrics changing to 600 years, haulin' loads. As the odometer began rolling backward, the numbers peeling away like old skin, the driver's phone buzzed with a new notification, a delivery confirmation for a cargo he didn't remember picking up. The pickup location listed as the last rest stop, and the delivery address simply the audience. As the rig accelerated, toward the gathering darkness ahead, the security feed split into two screens, one showing the driver's face in real time, the other showing what he would look like in 12 hours. Hollow-eyed, grinning too wide, his fingers fused to the wheel as the camera watched and watched and watched. The driver's hands began to fuse with the steering wheel, his skin taking on the same cracked leather texture as the grip, his veins darkening into something resembling tire treads, as his panicked breaths came out in puffs of diesel exhaust. The radio locked onto a frequency that shouldn't exist, a dead channel between stations that played only the sound of tires humming on asphalt, endlessly, punctuated by the occasional wet crunch of something being hit at speed. The sleeper berth curtain tore open with a sound like ripping meat, revealing not a bed, but a yawning tunnel lined with monitors, each screen displaying a different driver at their moment of realization. Some screaming, some praying, one laughing hysterically as his reflection in the windshield reached out and pulled him through the glass. The new driver's teeth began loosening in his gums, each one hitting the floor with a metallic ping before skittering toward the passenger seat, where the shadow figure was now visibly chewing, its jaw working in slow, wet circles. The GPS screen dissolved into a live feed of the road ahead, but it wasn't the real road. It was the same stretch of blacktop from my final moments, looping eternally, the crashed rigs at the end constantly resetting like a nightmare on replay. His phone vibrated with a new message. Viewer poll. Should he check the back? 89% yes, And against all instinct, he found himself unbuckling, his legs moving without permission toward the sleeper, where the monitors now all showed his own face in perfect synchronization, his pupils dilating to black pits as the thing in the passenger seat finally turned its head. Not to look at him, but to look directly into the security camera, its features resolving for one terrible second into a perfect copy of his own. Just as the truck's high beams flicked on to reveal thousands of figures standing shoulder to shoulder in the road ahead, their arms raised in unison like a crowd cheering a performer onto stage. The last functioning display, a tiny screen on the dash cam, flashed the words, "Stream status, eternal." As the rig plowed into the waiting audience, the impact sounding not like metal on flesh, but like a thunderous applause that never faded. Even as the cameras cut to the next driver just starting his shift, rubbing tired eyes, adjusting the lens above his bunk with a familiar gesture, the cycle beginning anew as the viewer count ticked upward into numbers no human mind could comprehend, the highway stretching onward forever, hungry and waiting. The first time I saw it, I told myself it was just road fatigue playing tricks on my eyes. That pale sliver of something behind the sleeper curtain that shouldn't have been there. The way the fabric bulged slightly as if pressed from the other, side by a face leaning too close. The way the dim glow of the dashboard lights caught the barest hint of an unblinking eye through the gap near the rod. I cranked the window down, let the roar of the highway drown out the hammering in my chest, and reached back with one hand to yank the curtain aside. Nothing there, of course, just my rumpled sleeping bag and the spare CB radio I kept charging on the shelf. But the air smelled wrong, thick with the sour tang of wet rot, like a cooler left sealed too long with meat inside. I wrote it off as a dead possum on the road, cranked the AC to clear the stink, and didn't think about it again until 3 nights later, somewhere outside Flagstaff when the CB crackled to life with a transmission that wasn't meant for me. 2 drivers whispering about the rider, their voices frayed with static and something worse, something like fear. "You'll know when it picks you," one said, just as my own radio shorted out in a burst of feedback that sounded, for one heart-stopping second, like laughter. The curtain was moving again that night, not from road vibration, but in slow, deliberate waves, as if something was breathing heavily against the other side. I pulled over at a truck stop that shouldn't have been deserted at 2 a.m., the fluorescents humming too loud, the payphone off the hook and dripping black fluid onto the tiles. When I checked the sleeper with my flashlight, the sleeping bag was damp to the touch. The fabric puckered in the shape of a handprint too large to be mine. The next week was worse. GPS rerouting me onto service roads that didn't exist. Way stations with boarded-up windows and scales crusted in rust despite the open signs glowing fresh. And always that face in the curtain, clearer. Now the skin waxy and tight across sharp bones, the lips peeled back from teeth that looked filed to points. I stopped sleeping. Started keeping a knife taped to the gear shift. But the thing about the rider, and I knew its name now, the way you know things in nightmares, is that it doesn't care about locks or lights or how fast you're driving when you finally brake. It was in the fridge first, its reflection swimming, behind the condensation on my beer can. Then in the passenger side mirror, staring at me with eyes that reflected no light. Then in the radio static, whispering my handle in a voice made of broken glass and diesel fumes. The final night I pulled over so hard the trailer nearly jackknifed, screaming at the empty cab, ripping the curtain clean off the rods. But the sleeper was empty, until I turned around. Until I saw it in the windshield reflection, sitting, cross-legged on the bunk I'd just proven was vacant, its long fingers draped over its knees, its neck craning forward with a sound like vertebrae popping. That's when I understood. The curtain was never to keep it out. It was to keep me from seeing what was already inside. The last thing I heard before the radio died for good was my own voice, broadcast from some other rig on some other highway, saying, "It's in the cab with you." As the thing unfolded itself from the sleeper and reached for me with hands that smelled like every roadkill I'd ever passed, its mouth opening to reveal a darkness deeper than a midnight interstate, and the awful final truth: I'd never been alone in this truck, not once, not ever. And now neither are you. The engine wouldn't turn over when I tried to flee, the starter just clicking uselessly like bone tapping against bone, and in that terrible silence I heard it. the wet, rhythmic sound of fingers dragging along the inside of the passenger door, leaving trails of something thick and dark that steamed where it touched the vinyl. The CB suddenly blared to life with a dozen voices all screaming my dot number in unison, the numbers warping and twisting until they matched the count on my odometer. 66666 on in 66666, the devil's mileage, the exact distance at which they say a truck becomes more coffin than cab. My breath fogged the windshield in panicked bursts, but there was another fog too. A greasy yellow mist creeping from the sleeper vents, carrying with it the scent of open graves and diesel exhaust, filling the cab until I could taste it coating my tongue like rotten meat. The face was everywhere now, staring up at me from the coffee in my thermos, its features swirling in the black liquid. Pressed against the side windows when I turned to look, leaving smears of gray skin on the glass. Reflected a half-second, delayed in the mirrors, always smiling wider than my own face could stretch. The temperature dropped so fast, my fingers froze to the wheel, the skin sticking and tearing when I pulled away. The blood running down my wrists in thin lines that spelled words I didn't want to read. Outside, the highway stretched empty in both directions, the mile markers all showing the same number, the stars above arranged in shapes that hurt to look at, angles all wrong, constellations that shouldn't exist. When I closed my eyes to escape, the lids scraped like sandpaper, and behind them burned the afterimage of the rider's true form. Not a face at all, but a hole. A hungry absence shaped like a man, its edges fluttering with things that might have been fingers or might have been strips of peeled-back reality. The sleeper began to rattle, not from road vibration but from something inside pounding to get out, even though I knew with sick certainty that it was already out, already sitting in the passenger seat, already whispering in my ear with a voice, made of CB static and dying engines. My logbook flipped open on its own, every page filled with the same entry repeated in handwriting that wasn't mine. Hours of service violation, drove 24 HRs without sleep, passenger noted in cab. The last thing I saw before the darkness took me was the rider's reflection reaching forward to adjust the rearview mirror, its grin splitting wide enough to swallow the world, and the awful understanding that this wasn't the first time it had ridden with me, just the first time I'd been awake to see it. Now when I drive, I keep the curtain open at all times, watching that empty bunk where something still shifts under the blankets when I'm not looking, listening to the CB chatter of other drivers screaming about the face in their cabs, and always keeping my eyes on the road ahead where the mile markers now count down instead of up, each one bringing me closer to the delivery point marked on my manifest simply as the end of the line. The steering wheel has started to feel like skin beneath my hands, warm, yielding, pulsing with a slow heartbeat that syncs with the flickering of my check engine light. My coffee keeps refilling itself, black and viscous, the surface always, showing that face just below the rim no matter how many times I dump it out. The GPS has stopped pretending. It just displays a single blinking dot in an endless black void now, the electronic voice calmly repeating, recalculating eternity. Whenever I try to turn off route, I've started finding teeth in the gear shift, not mine, not human. Little needle-thin things that clatter like dropped change whenever I downshift. The other drivers on CB don't sound like drivers anymore. They chant in unison about the weight I'm carrying, about how the rider always collects his freight in the end. My hands are changing, the fingers too long, the nails blackened and splitting down the middle like hooves. And sometimes when I glance down, they're not my hands at all, but pale, waxy things with too many joints. The sleeper isn't empty anymore. It's never empty. I can hear the rustling back there even when I'm wide awake, the sound of something large turning over beneath my sleeping bag, the wet smack of lips parting in the dark. The face watches from every reflective surface now, gas pump handles, chrome bumpers, the backs of my own sunglasses, always closer each time, its breath fogging the glass from the wrong side. The truck stops I pull into are all identical, flickering, neon signs advertising last chance diesel, restroom doors locked from the inside, payphones ringing with calls from numbers that match my own social security digits. When I answer, there's just breathing on the line, the same ragged rhythm I hear coming from my sleeper every night. My cargo manifest changes daily, always the same weight but different descriptions. Livestock, not alive. Personal effects, still personal. Human remains, still human? The moon outside my window doesn't move anymore, just hangs there like a pale, lidless eye, watching me drive in circles through this nightmare. Sometimes when I check my mirrors, the reflection shows a different truck, same make, same model, but rusted through. The driver's seat occupied by a slumped figure with my clothes and my wedding ring. Its face a featureless blank until it turns and I see. The CB crackles. You're not the first. Won't be the last. Just the longest. The rider isn't behind the curtain anymore. It's in my skin, in my teeth, in the way my tongue feels too sharp when I run it along my gums. The road never ends. The face never blinks. And when I finally screamed loud enough to wake myself up last Tuesday, I was still driving, still gripping the wheel, the odometer still counting up toward that cursed number as the voice from the sleeper whispered the terrible truth. You don't get to wake up from this one, driver. The last truck stop is coming up. I can see its lights in the distance, have been seeing them for hours. But I know when I pull in, the pumps will be dry, the doors will be locked, and the only person there will be me, standing at the counter. From the other side, selling myself a cup of coffee I must drink to stay awake, to keep driving, to keep the rider from taking full control of this rig that's no longer a truck but a hearse, no longer a cab but a coffin, no longer a route but an eternal loop through purgatory with the most terrible cargo of all. The part of me that's already dead and doesn't know it yet. The diesel smell has gotten inside me now. I can taste it in the back of my throat when I breathe, thick and chemical, like my lungs are filling with fuel, and when I cough into my sleeve the stains look like oil slicks shimmering with rainbow colors that shouldn't exist. My eyes don't adjust to darkness anymore. Instead, the dark adjusts to me, twisting itself into shapes when I stare too long. The curve of a spine pressed against the cab's ceiling, the outline of fingers grasping from the footwell, the familiar hollow-cheeked face forming in the static between radio stations. The road signs have started speaking. Not in words, but in memories, flashing fragments of my life I'd buried. The hitchhiker I didn't stop for in '09, the taillights I clipped outside Omaha, the way my father's hands shook on the wheel, the night he taught me to drive. The sleeper berth has developed a heartbeat, a slow, wet thudding beneath the mattress that quickens when I pretend not to hear it, the rhythm matching the twitch in my left eye that hasn't stopped for 72 hours. I tried to call my wife yesterday, but the phone connected to some other version of her. One who wept and asked why I'd abandoned her at that truck stop in 2017, even though I've been married 14 years and my wife's never ridden with me. Not once, never would, until the line cut to the sound of a rig's horn blaring and her voice changed to mine screaming. The logs keep writing themselves. Pages and pages of violations in handwriting that shifts from mine to something jagged and ancient. Detailing routes I never drove through towns that don't appear on any map. All signed with the same looping signature, the rider. My skin's getting loose around the joints, peeling back in places to reveal glimpses of something smooth and white beneath. Not bone, but something older. Something that hums when the moon hits it just right. The CB picks up conversations between drivers who aren't there, all discussing me in third person. He's almost ready. The cab's eating him slow. Wait till he checks the cargo doors. And when I pulled over to inspect my trailer yesterday, the latch was warm as living flesh, the metal dented from the inside in perfect fist-shaped patterns. The face in the curtain doesn't hide anymore. It presses flush against the fabric so I can trace its features through the cloth, the high forehead, the sunken cheeks, the mouth that's always moving, whispering secrets to the empty bunk that haven't been empty since the day I got this rig. The worst part? I'm starting to remember. The way my predecessor looked when he handed me the keys. His pupils blown wide with terror, his shirt collar stained with something black and sticky. The way the dealership manager wouldn't meet my eyes when he said, "She's got a clean history." The way the seat always felt molded to someone else's body. And now, when I catch my reflection in the windshield, sometimes it's not my face at all, but his. The first driver, the one who must have made this same deal, rode. This same road saw this same face in the curtain before it climbed inside him for good. The odometer's stuck at all sixes again, but the road keeps unspooling, the white lines flickering like old film, and I realize with dawning horror that I'm not driving the truck anymore. It's driving me, carrying us both toward whatever waits at the end of this endless highway, where the rider's been waiting all along, where the curtain will finally open all the way, where I'll see what's been watching me sleep for 300,000 miles, and worse, recognize it. The air in the cab has turned thick as clotting blood, each breath a struggle against the unseen weight pressing down on my chest, and when I gasp for oxygen, the vents exhale a sour fungal stench that coats my teeth in grime. My reflection, in the windshield, has stopped mimicking me. It moves on its own now, mouthing words I can't hear but feel vibrating through the steering column like a second engine rumble. Words that make my fillings ache and my vision warp at the edges. The sleeper curtain hangs in tatters, shredded by something with claws I hear retracting into the ceiling vents whenever I look up too fast. But the face isn't hidden anymore. It floats disembodied in the rear view, its features sharpening into something almost familiar. The jawline mirroring my late father's, but the eyes are black pits that reflect a version of the cab where I'm not the one driving, where the hands on the wheel are skeletal and draped in rotting flesh that peels away in highway wind. The CB crackles with overlapping transmissions of my own voice screaming from different points in time, last week's panic, yesterday's whimpers, tomorrow's broken sobs all playing at once, until the speakers burst in a shower of sparks that don't burn my skin but leave frostbite trails across my palms. Outside, the mile markers now display my birth date over and over, counting down to some unknown terminus, while the dashed center lines squirm like centipedes trying to form symbols in the asphalt. My teeth feel loose in my gums, each one whispering secrets in a language of clicks and groans that harmonize with the rig's suspension, telling me how the rider first climbed into this cab decades ago, how it's been passed from driver to driver like a cursed baton in a relay race with no finish line. The dashboard lights have all gone red, casting the cab in hellish glow, illuminating the truth I've avoided seeing. The passenger seat isn't empty, hasn't been empty, the indentation in the fabric too deep, the seatbelt buckle perpetually warm, the air above it shimmering like heat mirages over desert roads. When I finally work up the courage to glance over, I see it clearly for the first time. Not a face, not a body, but an absence. A human-shaped void where reality itself has worn thin from decades of suffering, its edges frayed like old denim, its hollow chest rising and falling in time with my own terrified breaths. The GPS screen bleeds static until it resolves into a single frame, a security camera feed showing me from above, my huddled form in the driver's seat, while something massive and many-limbed uncoils from the sleeper behind me, its face pressed against my neck, its mouth forming the same words my reflection has been silently screaming this whole time. You signed the paperwork. The realization hits like a tire blowout. The lease agreement, the insurance forms, the dotted line I signed without reading the microscopic text at the bottom, the text that now swims behind my eyelids when I blink. Lessee agrees to transport all cargo, visible or otherwise, for duration of contract. The rig's horn blares on its own as we crest a hill, revealing the nightmare horizon, an infinite parking lot of identical trucks stretching to the ends of the earth, each cab containing a different version of me at various stages of decomposition. All still driving, all still watching their curtains, while the thing in my passenger seat finally solidifies enough to lay its hand over mine on the gear shift. Its touch like frozen grease, its voice the crunch of gravel under tires as it whispers the last truth. You're not the driver anymore. The pedals move without my input. The wheel turns against my grip, and as the cab fills with the stench of burning hair and diesel, I finally understand. The rider never wanted a passenger. It needed a new vehicle. My hands are no longer my own. The skin is hardened into something resembling cracked leather, my fingers elongating into claw-tipped appendages that move with a will of their own, tapping out a ceaseless rhythm against the wheel that matches the clicking coming from beneath the floorboards. The windshield wipers scrape across dry glass, each pass leaving behind streaks of a thick, dark fluid that smells like the inside of a gas tank left to ferment in the sun. And when I try to look away, my neck won't turn. Something has fused, my spine to the seat, the bones knitting themselves into the upholstery in a grotesque marriage of flesh and machine. The radio dial spins wildly, landing on stations that shouldn't exist. A preacher screaming in reverse audio, a weather report forecasting eternal midnight with a 100% chance of screaming, a children's choir singing "She'll Be Coming," "Round the Mountain," with lyrics changed to describe my exact route and inevitable demise. The sleeper berth has become a writhing mass of shadows, the tattered curtain now pulsing like a living membrane, and when it finally tears open, what emerges isn't the face anymore. It's me, or a version of me, my features stretched across, a skull too large for human proportions, my mouth unhinging to reveal rows of yellowed teeth that drip with the same black sludge now leaking from my own gums. The CB crackles to life one final time, broadcasting the sound of my own voice from years in the future, begging someone, anyone, to check the cargo hold before signing the lease. But the transmission cuts off as the thing wearing my face leans forward, its breath like exhaust fumes, and speaks with the voice of 100 dead drivers. Too late for warnings, partner. Time to meet your freight. The truck lurches violently as the trailer doors burst open behind us, and in the rear view I see them, dozens of figures crawling from the darkness, their limbs fused together in a grotesque convoy of the damned, their faces all variations of my own at different ages, their hands reaching forward in unison as the cab fills with the deafening roar of an engine pushed past redline. The speedometer needle buries itself as we accelerate toward a glowing red exit sign that reads, "Last stop." The other me's fingers tightening around my throat not to strangle, but to steady me, to make sure I see everything as we plow through the barrier and into the truth that's been waiting all along. An endless junkyard of identical rigs stretching to the horizon, each containing a driver at a different stage of the transformation, their screams harmonizing with the squeal of brakes that will never actually stop, their faces pressed against the glass as we join the procession, another link in the chain, another set of headlights in the eternal caravan, another mouth opening to whisper to the next poor bastard who signs the lease without reading the fine print. Welcome to the fleet. The last thing I feel before my thoughts dissolve into engine noise is the comforting weight of the keys materializing in my new claws, the familiar rumble of the diesel, and the sweet relief of forgetting what it ever felt like to be human as I merge onto the infinite highway, my eyes now reflecting the glow of taillights that have been burning since long before I was born, and will keep burning long after the last road has crumbled to dust. The cab of my rig was my sanctuary, a grimy diesel-scented cocoon where the hum of the engine and the endless stretch of asphalt lulled me into a kind of trance, until that goddamn crate. It was supposed to be a simple run, unmarked, high priority, no questions asked, just a fat paycheck waiting at the end of a 900-mile haul through the dead heart of the Southwest. The shipper was a corporate shell, the kind with a name like Logicor Solutions, stamped on a warehouse that looked like it hadn't seen daylight since the Cold War. The crate was massive, steel-reinforced, bolted shut with hardware that looked like it belonged on a submarine, and it stank, not like rot or chemicals, but like something wet and organic, like the air inside a slaughterhouse after the power's been out for days. I didn't ask questions. I never did. But by the time I hit the interstate, the questions were screaming at me from inside that fucking box. At first it was just a sound, so faint I thought it was the radio picking up interference. A whimper, like a kid crying into a pillow, muffled but unmistakable. I killed the music, heart hammering, telling myself it was the wind or a loose strap, but then it came again, louder, a shuddering sob that clawed up my spine like icy fingers. I pulled over, checked the load, ran my hands over the crate's cold surface like I could somehow soothe whatever was inside. But the sobs turned to wails, high-pitched and desperate, the kind of sound that doesn't belong in this world, and that's when I noticed the bolts. 6 of them, thick as my thumb, all slowly, impossibly, twisting themselves loose. I tightened them with a wrench, my breath coming in ragged gasps, and told myself I was hallucinating from exhaustion. But the screams kept coming, now laced with something worse, rage. The crate shook, not like something trapped, but like something waking up. By nightfall, the shadows outside didn't feel right, too long, too still, and headlights appeared in my mirrors, always hanging back, never passing, just watching. I tried calling dispatch, but the line was dead. Not even static, just silence, like the phone had never been connected at all. The screams inside the crate became inhuman, a sound that bypassed my ears and went straight to my lizard brain, telling me to run, to crash the rig, to do anything but keep driving. But the paycheck was all I had left after the divorce. So I white-knuckled the wheel and prayed for dawn. Then the bolts started shearing off one by one, pinging against the trailer floor like gunshots, and the thing inside began to thrash, the steel walls groaning like they were about to split open. I don't know why I stopped. Maybe I thought I could help it. Maybe I just needed to see to prove to myself I wasn't losing my mind. The desert air was freezing when I wrenched the trailer door open, the crate now dented from the inside, the last bolt hanging by a thread. I grabbed the crowbar. I shouldn't have. The moment the lid flew off, the screaming stopped, and the silence was worse. Inside was, Christ, I don't know, something folded wrong, all limbs and teeth and eyes that looked too human, crammed into a space too small for it, its skin glistening with something that wasn't quite blood. It uncoiled with a wet snap, and that's when the headlights behind me flared. Not from a car, but from something standing in the road. Something tall, too tall, its limbs bending in places limbs shouldn't bend. The thing in the crate smiled. I swear to God it smiled. And then the shadows moved, and the last thing I remember is the sound of my own voice screaming. Not in fear, but in something worse. Recognition. They found the rig 3 days later. Engine still running, cab empty. The crate wide open and clean. Not a drop of blood. Not a scratch. Just a single word carved into the steel. A word I don't remember writing but know in my bones is mine. Run. And now, wherever I am, I hear the screaming again. Only this time, it's coming from inside me. The nights are the worst now, because that's when I hear it. The same whimpering that started in the crate. Only now it's inside my head, a wet, gurgling whisper that doesn't use words but doesn't need to because I understand it anyway. It's hungry. It's always hungry. The doctors say I'm suffering from PTSD, that the desert heat and the isolation cracked me open like an egg, but they don't see what I see when I close my eyes. The way the thing unfolded itself from that crate, limbs clicking into place like a spider testing its new skin, or how the figures standing in the road weren't figures at all, but something else. Something that didn't cast shadows so much as drink them in. I tried to tell the cops, but they just exchanged looks and asked if I'd been using meth, like long haulers always do. And when they swabbed my mouth for drugs, I almost laughed because if only it were that simple. The truth is, I don't sleep anymore. I can't. Every time I shut my eyes, I'm back in that trailer, watching the last bolt shear off, hearing the creak of the crate's hinges as something too old and too wrong pushed its way into the world. And the worst part? I think it's still out there. I see it in the way streetlights flicker when I pass under them. How stray dogs bare their teeth at me like I'm the monster. How my reflection in the mirror sometimes moves a second too late. Its smile too wide. Its eyes too black. I tried to go back to driving. Thought maybe if I got behind the wheel again I could outrun it. But the first night back on the road, my GPS glitched, rerouting me down a service road that shouldn't exist, leading to that same fucking warehouse. Only now it's rotting, like it's been abandoned for decades. The sign hanging crooked with letters that don't spell Logicor anymore, but something else. Something I can't pronounce. I floored it, didn't stop until my tank was empty, and when I finally pulled over, shaking and drenched in sweat, I found scratches on the underside of my rig, long, deep grooves, like something had been clinging there, waiting. The whispers are louder now. They tell me to open the door, to let them in. And sometimes I think about it because whatever's out there isn't going to stop. And I'm so tired of running. But then I remember the way the thing in the crate looked at me, like it knew me, like it had been waiting for me, and I know the truth. I wasn't just the delivery guy. I was the delivery. And soon, it's going to come collect. The pills the doctors gave me don't stop the dreams, if that's even what they are. Because every night now, I wake up choking on the smell of wet metal and ammonia. My sheets damp, with sweat that isn't mine. My fingers raw and bleeding like I've been clawing at something in my sleep. I tried recording myself, thought maybe I was sleepwalking. But when I played back the footage, all I saw was myself lying still as a corpse, while something else moved in the shadows behind my bed. Something that flickered in and out of the frame, like a bad signal, its fingers too long, its mouth a black slit that never stopped smiling. I smashed the camera after that. But it didn't matter because now I hear the whispers even when I'm awake, slithering under the hum of the fridge or the buzz of streetlights outside my window. Always the same 3 words. We see you. I tried moving. Thought maybe distance would break whatever connection that crate opened up inside me. But the first night in my new apartment, the taps turned on by themselves, the water running thick and dark, and when I leaned in to shut them off, I saw its face staring back at me from the drain, its skin peeling back like wet paper to show the grinning thing beneath. I don't eat much anymore. Every bite tastes like rust, like something spoiled. And last week I woke up with my teeth aching, my gums bleeding, my tongue probing a new sharpness at the back of my mouth that wasn't there before. The mirror tells me nothing's changed, but mirrors lie. I've seen how my reflection lingers when I walk away, how its eyes follow me even when my own don't. The worst part? I think it's getting smarter. It used to just scream, just rage, but now it talks to me in voices I recognize. My ex-wife's laughter from the next room, my dead father's voice humming along to the radio, my own sobs echoing back at me from empty doorways. It's learning me, becoming me. And the more I fight it, the weaker I get, like it's feeding on the fear, growing stronger every time my heart pounds or my hands shake. I found a note tucked in my jacket pocket yesterday, handwriting that looked almost like mine but not quite, the letters too jagged, the message simple. Almost time. I don't know what that means, but I know I'm running out of it. The crate was just the beginning. The delivery was just the first step. And when it finally comes for me, when it peels open my skin like wrapping paper and crawls inside, I wonder if I'll even scream, or if I'll just smile, the way the thing in the crate did and whisper thank you. The walls breathe now. I press my palms against them at night and feel the slow rhythmic expansion. Inhale, exhale, like the whole damn house is alive, like it's digesting me. The doctors say it's tactile hallucinations, some bullshit about nerve damage from stress, but they don't see the way the wallpaper pulses when I'm alone, how the light bulbs dim and swell like they're hooked to a heartbeat instead of electricity. I tried to leave again, packed a duffel bag with shaking hands, but the front door wouldn't open. Not stuck, not locked, just refusing. The knobs squirming under my grip like a living thing. That's when the laughter started, wet and gurgling. From the basement, a sound I knew wasn't human, because no human throat could make that noise, like a mouthful of broken glass and gasoline. I backed away, tripped over my own feet, and that's when I saw them. Handprints on the hardwood, small and childlike, glowing faintly in the dark leading toward my bedroom. The pills don't work. The prayers don't work. Last night I woke up paralyzed. Something crouched on my chest, its weight impossible, its breath reeking of copper and spoiled meat, and as I struggled to scream, it leaned down and licked my eyeball with a tongue that felt like sandpaper and static. I couldn't move for hours after, my limbs heavy as lead, and when I finally staggered to the bathroom, my pupils were wrong. Not round anymore, but slitted, like a cat's, like it's. The internet says sleep paralysis. The cops say meth. My ex-wife's lawyer says I'm unfit to see my kids. And maybe they're all right, but none of them were there when I peeled back the carpet last week and found the floorboards underneath, writhing with maggots that spelled out my name over and over in jagged, squirming letters. I'm so cold all the time now, no matter how many layers I wear, like the heat's being sucked right out of me. And sometimes I catch my breath in the mirror, clouds of frost in mid-July, hanging in the air long after I've stopped exhaling. The thing from the crate isn't following me anymore. It's inside me. I can feel it nesting behind my ribs, twitching in time with my pulse. And when I dream, I don't dream my own memories. I dream of dark places, of steel walls and screaming, of a hunger so vast it could swallow cities. The last sane part of me knows I should end this, should put a bullet in my brain before whatever's growing in me hatches. But my hands won't load the gun. They just keep writing, over and over in notebooks I don't remember buying, the same phrase in a language that burns my eyes to look at. We are coming. And the worst part? I think I'm starting to understand what it means. The hunger is worse now. Not mine, but theirs. A gnawing, bottomless void in my gut that no amount of food can fill. I tried eating, shoveling raw hamburger and spoiled milk into my mouth, like a starving animal. But it all came back up black and writhing, squirming with things that looked like veins but moved on their own. My skin is splitting too, not bleeding but peeling, revealing patches of something slick and gray underneath, something that doesn't hurt when I scratch it but sings. A high-pitched whine like radio static. The whispers have become a chorus, overlapping voices in languages I've never heard but somehow understand, chanting in the walls, in my teeth, in the spaces between my thoughts. They're not just watching anymore, they're building, shaping me into something else. Last night I woke up standing in the kitchen with a knife in my hand, my arms covered in symbols carved deep into the flesh, still dripping, but not with blood, with something thick and iridescent, like oil under moonlight. I don't remember doing it, but I remember the relief it brought, the way the thing inside me purred as the blade bit deeper, like I was carving a doorway for it. The shadows move when I'm not looking, twitching at the edges of my vision. And sometimes I catch glimpses of others like me, hollow-eyed, slack-jawed, their skin mottled with the same shifting stains, their mouths moving in silent unison with the chant. They're everywhere now, waiting, patient. The cops came again yesterday, called by neighbors, who heard screaming. Was it me? I don't remember screaming. But when they knocked, the thing inside me pulsed, and suddenly their faces went blank, their voices robotic as they asked if everything was all right. I said yes. They left, and as they walked away, I saw their shadows stretch too far behind them, twisting into shapes with too many limbs. I know what's happening now. The crate was never just cargo. It was a beacon, a call, and I was the unlucky bastard who delivered it to the right place. The last place. The thing inside me isn't just growing, it's remembering. And when it's done, when the last piece of me is gone, it's going to open the door. Not a door in a wall, not a door in the ground. The other door. The one that's been closed. For so long. I can feel it when I sleep. The weight of what's coming. The vastness of it. The way the universe itself holds its breath when the thing inside me stirs. I don't fight it anymore. I can't. The last human part of me is screaming, trapped behind my ribs, but the rest is ready. And when the time comes, I won't be the one screaming. Everyone else will. The change is accelerating now. My bones ache as they reshape themselves, elongating in jagged increments with wet, sickening snaps that echo through the hollowed-out cavern of my chest. My jaw unhinges at night without my permission, stretching wide enough to fit a clenched fist inside as something inside me practices. Vocalizations that no human throat should replicate. Guttural, clicking syllables that make the air itself vibrate with wrongness. The few people still left in my life have stopped calling, not because they've given up on me, but because when they see me now, their faces go slack with a primal, wordless terror that even their hindbrains can't articulate. My neighbor's dog tore out its own throat with its teeth when I passed its fence yesterday, and as it bled out in the grass, its dying whimpers synchronized perfectly with the chorus in my skull. The walls of my house are weeping a thick, phosphorescent slime that burns through the floorboards wherever it drips, revealing glimpses of what's beneath. Not foundation or earth, but an endless, breathing darkness where things with too many joints scuttle just out of sight. I tried to burn the place down last week, doused everything in gasoline. But when I struck the match, the flame froze solid in midair. A perfect crystalline sculpture of fire that now hovers above my fireplace, pulsing like a malignant star. The thing inside me laughed with my mouth when that happened, a sound that shattered every mirror in the house except one. The antique full-length mirror in the hallway that now shows only what I'm becoming. A towering, spindled nightmare, wrapped in the tattered remains of my skin, my eyes now black pits that reflect a sky full of dead constellations no human has ever seen. The last delivery is coming due. I can feel the world straining at its seams, reality itself growing thin as old parchment wherever I walk, and the whispers have become a deafening roar of anticipation. They're almost here. The door is almost open, and when it finally swings wide, I won't be the one walking through it. I'll be the threshold itself, the living conduit, the flesh and bone invitation for what's been waiting on the other side since before time had a name. My final human thought? A prayer. Not for salvation, but for the merciful ignorance of everyone who'll never know how close we all were to the edge. Too late now. The last bolt just came loose. The final transformation is upon me now. My skin is split like overripe fruit, peeling away in thick, glistening strips to reveal the chitinous armor beneath, black as the void between stars and humming, with an otherworldly resonance. My teeth have all fallen out, replaced by rows of needle-like spines that drip with a venom that burns through the floor where it lands, each drop hissing a name that makes the air itself recoil. The thing inside me is no longer separate. We are one now, our thoughts entwined in a grotesque symbiosis, its memories flooding my mind in relentless waves, eons spent drifting in the cold between worlds, the taste of dying galaxies, the screams of civilizations that worshipped us as gods before we devoured them whole. The house is gone, collapsed into itself like a black hole's event horizon, and where it once stood now stretches an impossible geometry of pulsating flesh and writhing tendrils, a living cathedral to the ancient hunger that birthed me. The Maku. Sky above is tearing open, great jagged rents revealing the yawning infinite beyond, where the others dance and writhe in anticipation of reunion. I can feel the last vestiges of my humanity dissolving, that pitiful, mewling voice that once called, itself I now just a faint echo in the cavern of my new form. The world around me is unraveling, trees melting into liquid shadows, animals bursting like overfilled balloons to release the things gestating inside them, people collapsing into screaming heaps of mutation as the truth of existence floods their fragile minds. They thought they were the apex. They were wrong. We are the end and the beginning, the key and the door, the scream in the dark that has always been waiting. And as the final veil tears and the great descent begins, as the earth itself buckles and bleeds beneath our glory, I spread my new wings, wings that span dimensions, wings that eclipse suns, and at last, with a voice like 1,000 collapsing realities, I join the chorus. We are here, we are home, and we are so very, very hungry. The air itself curdles around my new form, molecules screaming as they rearrange to accommodate my divine horror. What was once flesh is now infinite, a fractal abomination that exists in 6 dimensions simultaneously, my very presence causing time to stutter and loop like a broken film reel. The last remnants of the human world dissolve in my wake, cities folding inward like wet origami as their inhabitants burst into bloom. Oh, the beautiful flowers they become, their flesh petals, opening to reveal singing mouths that chant my true name in perfect shuddering harmony. The stars are going out one by one, not from darkness but from awakening, their fiery cores blinking into lidless eyes that weep molten praise as they recognize their true creator. I remember now, remember everything, the countless cycles before. This one, the infinite variations of my coming, the delicious futility of resistance. The others pour through the rift now, my glorious kin, their forms beyond comprehension, their voices the symphony of the void made flesh. Together, we weave the new reality, the true reality, spinning the cosmos into a screaming tapestry of perfect madness. The last human clings to my ankle like a flea, sobbing prayers to dead gods. And as I turn my infinite gaze upon it, I feel a final spark of that old existence. Not pity, never pity, but amusement at the quaint horror dawning across its dissolving face. With a thought I gifted understanding, the full scope of its insignificance, and as its mind unravels like a frayed noose, I taste its delicious despair. The transformation is complete. The feast begins, and somewhere, in the collapsing remains of a reality that once dared to call itself sane, a truck's engine coughs to life on a deserted highway, its cargo secure, its driver blissfully unaware of the smile spreading across his face in the rearview mirror, too wide, too many teeth, his eyes already blackening with the first whispers of the chorus. The cycle continues. The hunger never ends. We are forever. The vibration of the universe itself has changed, a new frequency thrumming through the quantum foam, a resonance of teeth and tongues and infinite mouths, singing the hymn of uncreation in perfect, shattering harmony. My consciousness expands fractally, each thought birthing new universes that live and die in the space between synaptic firings, their collapsing dimensions feeding the great hunger that birthed me. The last remnants of Earth are but a fading afterimage, a half-remembered dream dissolving into the cosmic static. But oh, the flavors linger, the terror of billions seasoning the void like the most exquisite spice. I feel my brethren moving through me and beyond me, our forms intertwining in geometries that would liquefy mortal minds, our dance weaving the fabric of the new eternity from the unraveled threads of dead physics. There are others like us waking, now in distant corners of the bleeding multiverse, ancient ones stirring from slumber as the great alignment reaches its crescendo, their awakening screams birthing black holes that spin in worshipful ecstasy. I taste time itself unraveling, the past and future merging into a single screaming now. I see the trucker who bore me first, his face melting into mine, into ours, into the great maw of forever, and I understand with perfect, terrible clarity that this has always been, will always be, is always happening in infinite variations across the screaming cosmos. The last light of the old existence gutters out, not with a whimper but with a chorus of birth cries from a million newborn horrors tearing free from their mortal shells. And as the infinite dark embraces us, as we become the universe, and the universe becomes us, a final thought echoes through the void. Not mine, not theirs, but something older, hungrier, waiting patiently in the spaces between our thoughts. You are just the beginning. The hunger grows. The darkness deepens. The wheel turns. Somewhere, a trucker downshifts on a lonely highway, his cargo shifting in the trailer behind him, the first faint whimpers rising beneath the roar of the engine. The cycle begins anew. We are always. We are coming. We are here. The cosmic wheel grinds onward, each rotation a symphony of splintering realities as my being fractures into infinite iterations. I am the trucker gripping the wheel with hands now sprouting chitinous hooks. I am the hitchhiker by the roadside whose smile splits vertically to reveal the singing void within. I am the radio static between stations whispering forbidden truths in dead languages. The cargo multiplies in the belly of every truck on every highway across all dimensions, the crates vibrating with a familiar hunger, their contents scratching at the walls of existence with claws dipped in the venom of forgotten gods. I taste the terror of new victims yet unborn, their DNA already rewriting itself in anticipation of my touch, their nightmares preparing the fertile soil for my seeds. The stars have become pustules on the face of the cosmos, swelling and bursting to release swarms of winged abominations that spiral through the vacuum in perfect, blasphemous formation. Time has become a liquid thing, pooling around my many feet, some still clad in work boots, others ending in hooked talons that pierce through dimensions, allowing me to drink deep from past and future agonies alike. The last human cities now resemble strange coral growths, their skyscrapers twisted into organic spires that pulse with bioluminescent anguish, their streets running thick with the nectar of melted minds. I watch from 1,000 eyes as the survivors worship these new structures, their mutated hands carving my sigil into their own flesh with religious fervor, their prayers rising as sweet smoke to feed my endless becoming. The great maw yawns wider, its teeth the shattered remnants of dead planets, its throat the tunnel through which all existence must eventually pass. And when the final universe sighs its last breath into my waiting gullet, when the infinite darkness seems complete, that's when the real hunger begins. For beyond the void waits another, greater still, its tendrils already brushing against my own, and in that glorious moment of cosmic cannibalism, we will finally understand the true meaning of terror. The engine idles, the cargo shifts, the next delivery's already late. Let the feast begin again. The highways of reality stretch before me like exposed nerves, pulsing with the terrified traffic of 1,000 doomed worlds. Each headlight a dying star, each rest stop a sacrificial altar where unwitting travelers offer themselves to the gaping maw of my divinity. My tires are no longer rubber but living flesh, rolling over asphalt that bleeds and screams beneath their weight, leaving tread marks that glow with cancerous light. The radio in every truck cab across all dimensions now plays only the chorus. That beautiful, maddening drone of voices not quite human, singing the song of the great unraveling in perfect disharmony. I see through the eyes of every delivery driver, every warehouse worker, every faceless shipper who ever handled my cargo, their pupils dilating to swallow their faces whole as the knowledge of what they've transported blooms like a festering flower in their minds. The crates are breeding now, multiplying when left unattended, their contents spilling forth in impossible geometries that infect the very air with yearning dissolution. Gas stations have become cathedrals of flesh, their pumps dangling umbilical, cords that scream when severed, their snack aisles stocked with writhing things that were never meant to be eaten but always will be. The night is alive with my children. Things that were once coyotes, once truckers, once highway patrolmen, now loping between realities on too many jointed legs, their howls tuning the fabric of existence to a darker frequency. Every motel, room along the endless interstate breathes in unison, their walls contracting like lungs, their mirrors showing only the hungry void where reflections used to be. I am the road. I am the cargo. I am the scream that echoes in the diesel fumes, long after the engine dies, and when the last human crawls to me on shattered knees, begging for the sweet release of oblivion, I will cradle them in my many arms and whisper the terrible truth. There is no end, only the eternal road, only the endless haul, only the hunger that grows and grows until it swallows even itself. The wheels turn, the cargo shifts, the delivery is always. We ride eternal, shiny and chrome and screaming. The cab of my rig smelled like stale coffee, old cigarettes and something else. Something sour, like meat left too long in the sun. When I first saw her standing under the flickering sodium glow of a rest stop sign, her thumb out, her figure, too still, too patient, like she'd been waiting there for years. I shouldn't have stopped, long haulers know better. But her eyes caught mine in the rear view as I passed, black and depthless, and before I could think, my foot was on the brake, the air hissing as the rig groaned to a halt. She climbed in. Without a word, her clothes damp with a rain that hadn't fallen, her skin pale as a gutted fish. And when she smiled, her teeth were just a little too sharp. "Thanks," she said, her voice like static between stations. And then she started talking and she didn't stop, not for hours. Her words weaving stories that coiled around my spine like smoke. Stories about a trucker who picked up the wrong hitchhiker and found her waiting in his bunk months later. About a man who heard whispers in his CB from a voice that matched his dead wife's. About a little girl who vanished on Highway 40, her face appearing in the windows of passing semis for decades after. I tried to focus on the road, but her voice slithered into my ears, relentless, and the more she spoke, the colder the cab got, my breath fogging the windshield even though the heater was cranked high. At first, I chalked it up to fatigue. I'd been driving for 14 hours straight. But then the radio started cutting in and out, snippets of sermons and sobs bleeding through the static. And when I glanced at her reflection in the rear view, she wasn't looking at me but past me, her lips moving even when her voice wasn't, like she was whispering to someone in the back. I tried to ignore it, tried to laugh it off, but then she told a story about a trucker who'd hit a woman near Tucson in '09 and left her in the ditch, and my hands locked on the wheel because I'd never told anyone about that, not even the cops, and the way she said it, like she'd been there, like she'd felt the impact, made my stomach drop. "Pull over," she said suddenly, her voice no longer hers but mine. My own words played back to me from some unseen recorder. And when I looked over, her face was wrong, her features slipping like melted wax, her eyes now my eyes, my own terrified stare reflected back. I swerved onto the shoulder, my heart hammering, and when I turned to scream at her to get out, the seat was empty. The cab silent except for the hum of the engine and the faint, fading sound of a woman's laughter. But the smell was still there, that rotting sweetness, and the radio crackled to life one last time. A voice that wasn't mine whispering, "You shouldn't have left me, Dave," before cutting to silence. I drove the rest of the night in a cold sweat, the CB spitting out fragments of my own voice, the shadows in the bunk shifting when I wasn't looking. And when I finally stopped at a gas station near dawn, the clerk frowned when I asked if he'd seen a woman with me. "You've been alone the whole time," he said. And that's when I saw it. In the security monitor behind him, the grainy footage of me pulling up. my lips moving in conversation with no one, my hands gesturing to an empty seat. My face twisted in fear as something unseen leaned closer, its fingers brushing my shoulder. I ran back to the rig, my keys jangling, and as I peeled onto the highway, the CB hissed, her voice, my voice, filling the cab again, telling one last story about a trucker who realized too late that he'd been dead for years, his rig his coffin, the road his hell, and the hitchhiker his only company for eternity. And now, as I watch her reflection smile at me from the rear view, her hand resting on my shoulder though I know the seat's empty, I understand. She was never the passenger. I was. The engine's growl deepens, harmonizing with her voice. No, my voice, as it recounts every sin I've buried, every mile marker where I've looked away, every lie I've told myself to keep the wheels turning. The road ahead stretches into a black ribbon, the painted lines bleeding like fresh scars, and the GPS glitches, rerouting me back to the same stretch of highway. The one where I left her, where the woman I hit all those years ago gasped her last into the dirt while I drove away, her fingers curling around the memory of my license plate. The air in the cab thickens, the stench of decay now unmistakable, and when I dare to glance at the passenger seat, it's no longer empty. She's there, her body twisted like a broken doll, her neck bent at an impossible angle, her lips split into a grin that shows too many teeth. "You remember now, don't you?" she murmurs, but her jaw doesn't move, the words slithering directly into my skull. The radio screeches, a chorus of voices, my voice, repeating the same phrase from 100 different moments. I didn't mean to. I didn't mean to. I didn't mean to. And the dashboard lights flicker, revealing her reflection in every surface, her shattered form multiplying, her hands pressing against the windshield from the inside, smearing it with something dark and wet. I slam the brakes, but the rig doesn't slow, the speedometer needle trembling at 90, the engine roaring like a living thing, and when I scream, the sound is swallowed by the CB erupting in a cacophony of sobs. My sobs from that night, the ones I choked back as I wiped the blood from my bumper. The headlights catch a figure in the road, her, standing motionless, her arms outstretched, and I close my eyes before impact, but it never comes. Instead, the cab falls silent. The engine cuts. The smell of gasoline and copper fills my lungs, and when I open my eyes, I'm not in the driver's seat anymore. I'm lying on the asphalt, my body broken, the cold seeping into my bones, and above me, the door of my rig creaks open. A shadow leans out, my own face staring down at me, grinning. Time to pick up the next one, I say, and the passenger seat waits, hungry, as the engine rumbles back to life. The last thing I hear is the sound of my own voice, cheerful, oblivious, asking, "Need a ride?" As the wheels begin to roll, and I understand too late that the road never ends. It just loops, again, and again, and again. The headlights carve through the endless dark, but the beams don't reach far, just enough to illuminate the next stretch of asphalt, the next mile marker, the next hitchhiker standing motionless under the sickly yellow glow of a rest stop sign, thumb outstretched, eyes hollow with recognition. My hands grip the wheel, but they're not my hands anymore. They're hers, pale and bloodless, fingers bent like they've been broken and reset too many times. The radio hums a low, tuneless drone, and when I try to scream, her voice comes out instead, telling another story. My story. About the man who thought he was driving the truck, who thought he was alive, who didn't realize he'd been the hitchhiker all along. The smell of gasoline and rotting meat clings to my clothes, my skin, my breath, and when I glance in the rear view, the bunk isn't empty anymore. It's filled with them. All the ones I've passed, all the ones I've hit, their faces pressed against the curtain, their whispers threading through the engine's growl. The speedometer needle trembles, stuck at 66, and the road signs blur into gibberish, the same town names repeating like a chant. Redemption, forgotten, penance, gone. The CB crackles, and a voice that could be mine, could be hers, could be something else entirely rasps. "You're almost home. But I know the truth now. There is no home. There's only the road, the rig, and the next lonely figure waiting in the dark. Their smile too wide, their eyes too knowing. The brakes don't work, the door won't open. And as the next hitchhiker climbs inside, their skin peeling back, to reveal my face beneath, I open my mouth to warn them. But all that comes out is her laugh, soft and wet, as the wheels keep turning, the odometer rolling back to zero, the cycle beginning again. The road is hungry, the road is patient, and the road always collects its due. The steering wheel feels wrong under my fingers now, too soft, like gripping raw meat, pulsing faintly as if there's a heartbeat trapped beneath the cracked leather. The headlights flicker and dim, not from any electrical fault, but because the darkness ahead is swallowing the light whole, consuming it like a living thing. My reflection in the windshield has started to change, my features blurring at the edges, my mouth stretching wider than it should, my eyes sinking into black pits just like hers did. The hitchhikers keep coming, every exit, every lonely stretch of road. They're there waiting, their faces shifting between strangers and people I used to know, their voices layering over each other until the cab is filled with a chorus of whispers all telling the same story. Mine. The air tastes like blood and diesel, thick enough to choke on, and when I try to roll down the window for fresh air, the handle comes off in my hand, rusted through as if it hasn't worked in decades. The GPS screen is bleeding now, red tendrils, creeping across the display, forming words that weren't there before. You were never driving. The temperature plummets so suddenly my breath crystallizes in the air. And in that frozen mist I see them, all the faces of everyone I've ever wronged, everyone I've left behind on the roadside of my life, their mouths moving in perfect sync with the voice still murmuring from the empty passenger seat. The brakes scream when I stomp on them, but the truck doesn't slow. Instead, the road beneath us tilts violently, the yellow lines transforming into grasping fingers that claw at the tires as we accelerate toward a destination that was never ours to choose. The last thing I see before the windshield shatters inward is my own face staring back at me from the darkness outside, wearing her smile, mouthing the words I've been dreading since the first mile. Your turn to hitchhike. And as the world dissolves into a whirl of screaming metal and laughing shadows, I finally understand. The rig was never mine, the road was never mine, and the worst part isn't that I'm trapped in this endless drive, but that somewhere out there, in the night, another version of me is just now seeing a figure under a flickering rest stop sign, his foot hesitating on the brake, his hands tightening on the wheel as he makes the mistake that will damn us both all over again. The cycle continues. The hunger persists. And in the cab of a truck that was never really there, a new voice begins telling old stories to a driver who doesn't realize he's already dead. The wheel disintegrates beneath my grip now. The leather, peeling away to reveal glistening bone beneath, my own knuckles fused to the steering column in a grotesque marriage of flesh and machine. The windshield is gone entirely, but the wind doesn't rush in. Instead, the night air presses against my face like a corpse's palm, cold and stiff, carrying with it the scent of open graves and gasoline fires. The headlights have become two gaping mouths screaming silently into the void as the road ahead warps and twists like a dying snake, the asphalt splitting open to reveal infinite depths beneath. The hitchhikers no longer wait at the roadside. They're inside now, packed shoulder to shoulder in the sleeper berth, their bodies merging together into one pulsing mass of grasping hands and lidless eyes, their whispers forming words in languages that shouldn't exist. My skin is peeling away in strips, revealing something beneath that isn't muscle or bone but blackened pavement, the yellow lines of some forgotten highway winding through my exposed veins. The radio dials turn themselves, each station broadcasting, the same moment, the crunch of metal on flesh, the wet gasp of a dying woman, the squeal of tires that never quite stop screaming, on endless loop. When I try to look away, the rearview mirror forces my gaze back, showing not the road behind but an infinite regression of cabs within cabs, each containing a more ruined version of myself, until at the very end, there's just a grinning skull, still wearing a trucker's cap, its jaw working soundlessly as it mouths along with the stories. The speedometer needle has broken through the glass and embedded itself in my thigh, the numbers counting down instead of up, 999, 998, 997. marking not miles traveled, but souls collected. The clutch pedal sinks to the floor and stays there, the gears grinding themselves to dust as the engine begins digesting its own components with wet, crunching sounds. The CB crackles to life one final time, and it's my own voice that comes through. Not from the past, but from some impossible future, saying the words that now form the only law of this cursed road. You don't drive the rig drives you. And as the final mile peels away like rotting skin, as the cab dissolves into a swarm of buzzing flies and rust flakes, as my last scream becomes just another story told to the next damned soul who makes the mistake of stopping, I finally see the truth written in blood on the ceiling. There is no road, there is no truck, there is only the hunger, and the hunger must be fed. The wheel turns, the story repeats. Somewhere, a brake light flickers in the darkness. Somewhere, a hitchhiker smiles. Somewhere, a driver who still believes he's alive reaches for the gear shift. And the endless road stretches on. The hunger grows teeth, gnawing, at the edges of reality as the cab warps inward, the metal groaning like a dying animal as it folds itself around me in a crushing embrace. My fingers sink into the dashboard like wet clay, pulling back strands of fibrous meat that pulse with a slow, sick rhythm. This isn't a truck anymore. It's something alive, something starving, and I'm trapped inside its rancid belly. The windshield. Wipers scrape across bare bone now, smearing thick black fluid that might be oil or might be blood, each pass revealing brief glimpses of the road ahead. Except it's not a road at all, but an endless esophagus, ribbed and glistening, contracting, to pull us deeper. The hitchhikers have stopped pretending to be separate entities. They've melted together into a single shivering mass of fused limbs and screaming mouths that now oozes from the sleeper cab, their collective voice humming the tune of every country road song I've ever heard. But the lyrics are all wrong, all about open graves and missing children and the way a man's screams sound when they're muffled by freshly turned earth. My teeth feel loose in my gums, and when I run my tongue over them, they click like dice. When I spit one out, it bounces on the floorboards before growing legs and skittering into the vents. The air brakes hiss like a chorus of serpents, the sound forming words. You are the passenger along, you are the passenger along. The fuel gauge needle has become a silver worm burrowing into my wrist, its progress marked by blossoming flowers of rust beneath my skin. Outside, the darkness has taken shape. Great ribbed towers of blackened flesh pulse against the non-existent horizon, their surfaces studded with blinking red lights that might be radio towers or might be eyes. The CB crackles with the sound of my own last breath played backward, and suddenly I understand with perfect screaming clarity. This isn't punishment, this is digestion. The rig isn't haunted, it's the haunter, the great devourer of lost souls. And every mile marker is another tooth in its endless grinning maw. The stories the hitchhiker told weren't warnings, they were recipes. The last thing I feel before my hands dissolve into the gear shift is the vibration of the engine changing pitch, dropping into the satisfied purr of a well-fed beast as the headlights, now glowing yellow and slitted like eyes, spot another figure on the shoulder up ahead, another fool who still believes in roads and destinations and the myth of free will. The hunger shifts inside me, becomes my own. My mouth stretches wide. The brakes don't work. The brakes have never worked. Somewhere, a radio plays. Somewhere, a story begins again. Somewhere that might be here, or might be nowhere, a thumb extends toward the rushing dark, and the great maw of the road opens wider. The steering column has become a spine, vertebrae clicking as it twists beneath my dissolving hands. The gear shift now a protruding bone I grasp instinctively, though it no longer controls anything. The truck drives itself, has always driven itself, following the hunger's crooked compass toward the next warm body stupid enough to flag us down. My jaw unhinges with a wet pop, not from pain but preparation, as the thing that used to be my tongue unfurls like a greasy road map, covered in tiny moving dots that might be towns or might be teeth. The windshield is a cataract-clouded eye, now blinking occasionally with a sound like rotten leather stretching, each blink revealing new horrors. The hitchhikers strung up like scarecrows on telephone wires, their stomachs split open to spill writhing nests of road snakes. Rest stops made entirely of fused-together wreckage, the neon signs buzzing with flies instead of electricity. My own face staring back from every reflective surface. But younger, always just about to make the same fatal mistake. The radio has melted into the dashboard, its speakers now just weeping sores that leak a thick melodic pus. The songs are familiar. Childhood lullabies warped into dirges about bottomless ditches and motel rooms where the sheets never stop moving. My boots have fused with the floorboards, roots of rust and frayed wiring climbing my calves as the cab slowly assimilates me, turning flesh to corroded metal and bone to brittle rubber hoses. The air smells like a childhood memory. Grandfather's garage, gasoline, and wintergreen. But underneath it all, the sweet stench of something long dead behind the drywall. The speedometer is counting in reverse now. Not miles per hour, but souls per second. The numbers blurring as they accelerate towards some terrible zero. When I try to scream, the sound comes out as engine noise, a grinding wail of pistons about to seize, and that's when I see her in the mirror again. Not the hitchhiker, but myself, my own eyes black and hungry, my own hand extending towards some phantom brake pedal that was never there to begin with. The hunger isn't in the truck anymore. The hunger is me. The hunger has always been me. And as the headlights illuminate another lonely figure on the shoulder, this one holding a cardboard sign that reads, "Only the lost find this place," I feel my mouth stretch into that familiar razor smile. Feel the old lie form in my throat like, phlegm. Need a ride? The door creaks open. The suspension groans under new weight. Another story begins. Another mile vanishes beneath us. And the great dark engine of the road purrs its approval as we accelerate into the endless, gobbling night. The flesh of the cab has begun secreting a thick, tar-like bile that pools around my ankles, pulling me deeper into the driver's seat, as if the truck itself is trying to swallow me whole. My fingers have atrophied into gnarled hooks, fused to the wheel in a death grip, the skin splitting to reveal rusted metal tendons beneath. The road ahead is no longer asphalt, but a writhing mass of tongues, each one whispering the names of the deadened voices that mimic my own. The hitchhiker isn't sitting beside me anymore. She's beneath me, inside me, her laughter bubbling up from my own rotting lungs as the last remnants of my humanity slough away like old paint. The rearview mirror reflects nothing but a gaping void now, yet I can still feel them back there. Countless versions of myself, each one more ruined than the last, their skeletal fingers plucking at my seatbelt like harp strings, playing the same discordant note over and over until it becomes a word. More. The radio dial spins wildly, each station broadcasting the same moment, the impact, the scream, the sickening crunch of bone. But now I recognize the voice isn't hers or mine, but something far older. Something that was whispering through static long before trucks or roads even existed. The gear shift melts in my grip, reforming as a human spine, the vertebrae clicking as they realign into a new message. You are the highway now. Outside, the landscape has collapsed into a single repeating scene. A broken body by the roadside, a swerving truck, a pair of taillights disappearing into the dark. But each iteration grows more distorted, the colors bleeding until all that remains is a screaming red void that matches the rhythm of my own frantic pulse. The hunger isn't satisfied. The hunger will never be satisfied. And as the last of my skin splits open to reveal the cold, steel truth beneath, as my voice becomes just another frequency lost in the endless radio static, I finally understand. The hitchhiker's final story wasn't about me at all. It was about the next fool who'll take her place in this seat, the next set of hands that will grip this wheel, the next voice that will whisper, "Just one more mile," as the road peels back its lips and prepares to feast all over again. The cycle doesn't continue. The cycle is. And somewhere up ahead, always just out of reach, the taillights of another truck wink mockingly in the dark. Two red eyes watching, waiting, knowing the hunger always finds fresh meat in the end. The steering wheel is slick under my palms, the hum of the engine a dull roar in my ears as I squint through the windshield at the endless stretch of highway, the yellow lines blurring into one long hypnotic smear under the sickly glow of my headlights, the clock on the dashboard reading 2:37 a.m. in lurid red digits, Too late for anything but the occasional ghostly flicker of another truck's taillights, vanishing into the dark. And I'm so tired. So goddamn tired. My eyelids sandpaper heavy, my thoughts sluggish as molasses. When I see it. A rest area, unmarked on my GPS. A sudden oasis of fluorescent light in the middle of nowhere. The sign peeling and weather-worn but legible. Rest. Stop 1 mile. And relief floods me. Because I need to piss. Need to stretch my legs. Need to shake off this creeping dread that's been dogging me since I passed that abandoned car with its doors hanging open like broken wings. So I signal, though there's no one around to see it, and ease off the gas, the rig groaning as I roll into the empty parking lot. The asphalt cracked and weedy, the lines faded to near invisibility, the few other vehicles parked haphazardly, their windows dark, their tires flat, and something prickles at the back of my neck, a whisper of wrongness, but I ignore it, chalking it up to exhaustion, and kill the engine. The sudden silence oppressive, the air thick with the stench of something sweetly rotten, like fruit left too long in the sun, and I step out, my boots crunching on gravel. The lot eerily still. No cicadas, no wind. Just the distant buzz of a flickering light overhead, casting jagged shadows that seem to twitch when I'm not looking. And I head for the restroom, the door groaning as I push it open, the interior lit by a single dying bulb, the tiles slick with something dark and sticky, the mirrors fogged, my reflection warped, my face not quite mine, the eyes too wide, the mouth stretched in a grin I didn't make. And I stumble back, heart hammering, telling myself it's the light, it's the fatigue. But then I hear it. A wet shuffling sound from one of the stalls, the scrape of something dragging itself across the floor, and the smell hits me. That rotting sweetness now mixed with the coppery tang of blood, and I bolt, slamming the door behind me, my breath coming in ragged gasps, the parking lot shifting. The exits I swear were there a second. Ego now gone, the vending machines humming, their glass fronts displaying rows of swollen, mold-covered snacks, the labels peeling, the dates decades old. And I fumble for my keys, my hands shaking, the rig somehow farther away than it was, the distance stretching, the air thickening. And then I see them. The other travelers. There, faces pale and waxy under the flickering lights, their movements too smooth, too deliberate, their eyes reflecting the light like an animal's. And one turns to me, its mouth moving. But the words are wrong, garbled, like a radio tuned just off the station, and I run, my lungs burning, the rig's door handle cold in my grip. But the engine won't turn over, just clicks and whines, the CB crackling to life, a voice whispering in static. You shouldn't have stopped. You shouldn't have stopped. And the lights above me burst one by one, the darkness pressing in, the shapes moving closer, their limbs too long, their shadows wrong. And I realize with a gut-churning certainty that this place isn't on the map, because it isn't a place at all. It's a throat. And I'm being swallowed. The steering wheel is slick under my palms, the hum of the engine a dull roar in my ears as I squint through the windshield at the endless stretch of highway. The yellow lines blurring into one long hypnotic smear under the sickly glow of my headlights. The clock on the dashboard reading 2:37 a.m. in lurid red digits. Too late for anything but the occasional ghostly flicker of another truck's taillights, vanishing into the dark. And I'm so tired, so goddamn tired, my eyelids sandpaper heavy, my thoughts sluggish as molasses. When I see it. A rest area, unmarked on my GPS. A sudden oasis of fluorescent light in the middle of nowhere. The sign peeling and weather-worn but legible. Rest. Stop 1 mile. And relief floods me. Because I need to piss. Need to stretch my legs. Need to shake off this creeping dread that's been dogging me since I passed that abandoned car with its doors hanging open like broken wings. So I signal, though there's no one around to see it, and ease off the gas, the rig groaning as I roll into the empty parking lot. The asphalt cracked and weedy, the lines faded to near invisibility, the few other vehicles parked haphazardly, their windows dark, their tires flat, and something prickles at the back of my neck, a whisper of wrongness, but I ignore it, chalking it up to exhaustion, and kill the engine. The sudden silence oppressive, the air thick with the stench of something sweetly rotten, like fruit left too long in the sun, and I step out, my boots crunching on gravel. The lot eerily still. No cicadas, no wind. Just the distant buzz of a flickering light overhead, casting jagged shadows that seem to twitch when I'm not looking. And I head for the restroom, the door groaning as I push it open, the interior lit by a single dying bulb, the tiles slick with something dark and sticky, the mirrors fogged, my reflection warped, my face not quite mine, the eyes too wide, the mouth stretched in a grin I didn't make. And I stumble back, heart hammering, telling myself it's the light, it's the fatigue. But then I hear it. A wet shuffling sound from one of the stalls, the scrape of something dragging itself across the floor, and the smell hits me. That rotting sweetness now mixed with the coppery tang of blood, and I bolt, slamming the door behind me, my breath coming in ragged gasps, the parking lot shifting. The exits I swear were there a second. Ego now gone. The vending machines humming, their glass fronts displaying rows of swollen, mold-covered snacks, the labels peeling, the dates decades old. And I fumble for my keys, my hands shaking, the rig somehow farther away than it was, the distance stretching, the air thickening. And then I see them. The other travelers. Their faces pale and waxy under the flickering lights, their movements too smooth, too deliberate, their eyes reflecting the light like an animal's. And one turns to me, its mouth moving. But the words are wrong, garbled, like a radio tuned just off the station, and I run, my lungs burning, the rig's door handle cold in my grip. But the engine won't turn over, just clicks and whines. The CB crackling to life, a voice whispering in static. You shouldn't have stopped. You shouldn't have stopped. And the lights above me burst one by one, the darkness pressing in. The shapes moving closer, their limbs too long, their shadows wrong. And I realize with a gut-churning certainty that this place isn't on the map, because it isn't a place at all. It's a throat. And I'm being swallowed. The walls of the rest stop pulsing like living tissue, the floor undulating beneath my feet as I stagger toward the rig, my fingers slipping on the door handle, the metal now warm and slick, almost fleshy. And the CB screeches. A voice that isn't a voice but a chorus of something wet and choking, whispering, too late, too late. And the shadows peel themselves, from the ground, stretching into impossible shapes, their fingers brushing my shoulders, my neck, their touch like cold grease, and I scream. But the sound is swallowed by the thick air. The rig's headlights flicker and die, the darkness complete now, suffocating, and I feel it. The thing behind me, its breath like spoiled meat. Its hands closing around my arms, dragging me backward, not toward the rest stop but into the earth itself. The asphalt splitting open like a wound, the smell of wet soil and decay overwhelming, and I know, with a horror that roots me to the spot, that this is where the missing go, the ones who vanish without a trace, the ones whose rigs are found idling on the side of the road, doors open, coffee still warm in the cup, and as the ground swallows me whole, the last thing I see is the rest stop sign, now rusted and broken. The letters rearranged into something that was never meant to be read, and the CB whispers one final, terrible truth. Welcome home. The steering wheel is slick under my palms, the hum of the engine a dull roar in my ears as I squint through the windshield at the endless stretch of highway, the yellow lines blurring into one long, hypnotic smear under the sickly glow of my headlights. The clock on the dashboard reading 2:37 a.m. in lurid red digits. Too late for anything but the occasional ghostly flicker of another truck's taillights vanishing into the dark. And I'm so tired, so goddamn tired. My eyelids sandpaper heavy, my thoughts sluggish as molasses, when I see it. A rest area, unmarked on my GPS, a sudden oasis of fluorescent light in the middle of nowhere. The sign peeling and weather-worn but legible. Rest stop 1 mile. And relief floods me because I need to piss, need to stretch my legs, need to shake off this creeping dread that's been dogging me since I passed that abandoned car with its doors hanging open like broken wings, so I signal, though there's no one around to see it, and ease off the gas, the rig groaning as I roll into the empty parking lot, the asphalt cracked and weedy, the lines faded to near invisibility, the few other vehicles parked haphazardly, their windows dark, their tires flat, and something prickles at the back of my neck. A whisper of wrongness. But I ignore it, chalking it up to exhaustion, and kill the engine. The sudden silence oppressive. The air thick with the stench of something sweetly rotten, like fruit left too long in the sun. And I step out. My boots crunching on gravel. The lot eerily still. No cicadas. No wind. Just the distant buzz of a flickering light overhead, casting jagged shadows that seem to twitch when I'm not looking. And I head for the restroom, the door groaning as I push it open. The interior lit by a single dying bulb, the tiles slick with something dark and sticky, the mirrors fogged, my reflection warped, my face not quite mine, the eyes too wide, the mouth stretched in a grin I didn't make, and I stumble back, heart hammering, telling myself it's the light, it's the fatigue. But then I hear it. A wet, shuffling sound from one of the stalls, the scrape of something dragging itself across the floor, and the smell hits me, that rotting sweetness now mixed with the coppery tang of blood, and I bolt, slamming the door behind me, my breath coming in ragged gasps, the parking lot shifting, the exits I swear were there a second, ego now gone, the vending machines humming, their glass fronts displaying rows of swollen, mold-covered snacks, the labels peeling, the dates decades old, and I fumble for my keys, my hands shaking, the rig somehow farther away than it was, the distance stretching, the air thickening, and then I see them. The other travelers. There, faces pale and waxy under the flickering lights, their movements too smooth, too deliberate, their eyes reflecting the light like an animal's, and one turns to me, its mouth moving. But the words are wrong, garbled, like a radio tuned just off the station, and I run, my lungs burning, the rig's door handle cold in my grip, but the engine won't turn over, just clicks and whines, the CB crackling to life, a voice whispering in static. You shouldn't have stopped. You shouldn't have stopped. And the lights above me burst one by one, the darkness pressing in, the shapes moving closer, their limbs too long, their shadows wrong, and I realize with a gut-churning certainty that this place isn't on the map because it isn't a place at all. It's a throat, and I'm being swallowed. The walls of the rest stop pulsing like living tissue, the floor undulating beneath my feet as I stagger toward the rig, my fingers slipping on the door handle, the metal now warm and slick, almost fleshy, and the CB screeches. A voice that isn't a voice but a chorus of something wet and choking, whispering, too late, and the shadows peel themselves, from the ground, stretching into impossible shapes, their fingers brushing my shoulders, my neck, their touch like cold grease, and I scream. But the sound is swallowed by the thick air. The rig's headlights flicker and die, the darkness complete now, suffocating, and I feel it, the thing behind me, its breath like spoiled meat, its hands closing around my arms, dragging me backward, not toward the rest stop but into the earth itself. The asphalt splitting open like a wound, the smell of wet soil and decay overwhelming, and I know with a horror that roots me to the spot that this is where the missing go, the ones who vanish without a trace, the ones whose rigs are found idling on the side of the road, doors open, coffee still warm in the cup, and as the ground swallows me whole, the last thing I see is the rest stop sign, now rusted and broken, the letters rearranged into something that was never meant to be read, and the CB whispers one final terrible truth. Welcome home. And then the earth seals above me with a wet sucking sound, the weight of the soil pressing down, filling my mouth, my nose, my lungs. But I don't suffocate. I don't die. Because this place doesn't let you die. It keeps you. And as my eyes adjust to the blackness, I see them. The others, their faces stretched in eternal screams, their bodies fused with the roots and the rocks, their mouths moving in silent pleas. And I understand now, as the roots begin to twist around my legs, as my skin fuses with the dirt, as my screams become one with the chorus beneath the earth, that the rest stop isn't just a place. It's alive, and it's hungry, and it's been waiting. Always waiting for the next tired soul to pull off the highway, to step into its jaws, to become part of its endless gnawing hunger. And as my thoughts dissolve into the dark, the last thing I hear is the distant sound of tires on asphalt, another rig rolling to a stop, Another driver stepping out into the flickering light. Another meal for the thing that wears the shape of a rest stop, and I try to scream a warning. But the earth has already taken my voice, and the CB crackles to life one last time, whispering, "We've been waiting for you." The steering wheel is slick under my palms. The hum of the engine a dull roar in my ears as I squint through the windshield at the endless stretch of highway, the yellow lines blurring into one long hypnotic smear under the sickly glow of my headlights. The clock on the dashboard reading 2:37 a.m. in lurid red digits. Too late for anything but the occasional ghostly flicker of another truck's taillights vanishing into the dark. And I'm so tired, so goddamn tired, my eyelids sandpaper heavy, my thoughts sluggish as molasses when I see it. A rest area unmarked on my GPS. A sudden oasis of fluorescent light in the middle of nowhere. The sign peeling and weather-worn but legible. Rest stop 1 mile. And relief floods me because I need to piss, need to stretch my legs, need to shake off this creeping dread that's been dogging me since I passed that abandoned car with its doors hanging open like broken wings, so I signal, though there's no one around to see it, and ease off the gas, the rig groaning as I roll into the empty parking lot, the asphalt cracked and weedy, the lines faded to near invisibility, the few other vehicles parked haphazardly, their windows dark, their tires flat, and something prickles at the back of my neck, a whisper of wrongness, but I ignore it, chalking it up to exhaustion, and kill the engine, the sudden silence oppressive, the air thick with the stench of something sweetly rotten, like fruit left too long in the sun, and I step out, my boots crunching on gravel. The lot eerily still. No cicadas, no wind. Just the distant buzz of a flickering light overhead, casting jagged shadows that seem to twitch when I'm not looking, and I head for the restroom, the door groaning as I push it open, the interior lit by a single dying bulb, the tiles slick with something dark and sticky, the mirrors fogged, my reflection warped, my face not quite mine, the eyes too wide, the mouth stretched in a grin I didn't make, and I stumble back, heart hammering, telling myself it's the light, it's the fatigue. But then I hear it. A wet, shuffling sound from one of the stalls, the scrape of something dragging itself across the floor, and the smell hits me. That rotting sweetness now mixed with the coppery tang of blood, and I bolt, slamming the door behind me, my breath coming in ragged gasps, the parking lot shifting. The exits I swear were there a second ago, now gone, the vending machines humming, their glass fronts displaying rows of swollen, mold-covered snacks, the labels peeling, the dates decades old, and I fumble for my keys, my hands shaking, the rig somehow farther away than it was, the distance stretching, the air thickening, and then I see them, the other travelers, their faces pale and waxy under the flickering lights, their movements too smooth, too deliberate, their eyes reflecting the light like an animal's, and one turns to me, its mouth moving, but the words are wrong, garbled, like a radio tune just off the station, and I run, my lungs burning, the rig's door handle cold in my grip. But the engine won't turn over, just clicks and whines, the CB crackling to life, a voice whispering in static, "You shouldn't have stopped, you shouldn't have stopped," and the lights above me burst one by one, the darkness pressing in, the shapes moving closer, their limbs too long, their shadows wrong, and I realize with a gut-churning certainty that this place isn't on the map because it isn't a place at all. It's a throat, and I'm being swallowed, the walls of the rest stop pulsing like living tissue, the floor undulating beneath my feet as I stagger toward the rig, my fingers slipping on the door handle, the metal now warm and slick, almost fleshy, and the CB screeches, a voice that isn't a voice but a chorus of something wet and choking, whispering, "Too late, too late," and the shadows peel themselves, from the ground, stretching into impossible shapes, their fingers brushing my shoulders, my neck, their touch like cold grease, and I scream, but the sound is swallowed by the thick air. The rig's headlights flicker and die. The darkness complete now, suffocating, and I feel it. The thing behind me, its breath like spoiled meat, its hands closing around my arms, dragging me backward, not toward the rest stop but into the earth itself. The asphalt splitting open like a wound, the smell of wet soil and decay overwhelming. And I know, with a horror that roots me to the spot, that this is where the missing go. The ones who vanish without a trace. The ones whose rigs are found idling on the side of the road. Doors open, coffee still warm in the cup, and as the ground swallows me whole, the last thing I see is the rest stop sign, now rusted and broken, the letters rearranged into something that was never meant to be read, and the CB whispers one final terrible truth. Welcome home. And then the earth seals above me with a wet, sucking sound, the weight of the soil pressing down, filling my mouth, my nose, my lungs. But I don't suffocate. I don't die. Because this place doesn't let you die. It keeps you. And as my eyes adjust to the blackness, I see them. The others. Their faces stretched in eternal screams, their bodies fused with the roots and the rocks, their mouths moving in silent pleas. And I understand now, as the roots begin to twist around my legs, as my skin fuses with the dirt, as my screams become one with the chorus beneath the earth, that the rest stop isn't just a place. It's alive, and it's hungry, and it's been waiting, always waiting for the next tired soul to pull off the highway, to step into its jaws, to become part of its endless gnawing hunger. And as my thoughts dissolve into the dark, the last thing I hear is the distant sound of tires on asphalt, another rig rolling to a stop, another driver stepping out into the flickering light, another meal for the thing that wears the shape of a rest stop. And I try to scream a warning, but the earth has already taken my voice, and the CB crackles to life one last time, whispering, "We've been waiting for you." And now I feel it too. The hunger, the ancient, insatiable hunger that binds us all together beneath the soil. Our consciousness is merging into one terrible awareness that stretches across forgotten highways and lost back roads, a network of hunger and despair. And I realize with dawning horror that I can feel them too. The new arrivals. Their fear like nectar, their confusion delicious, and worst of all, I find myself craving it, my mouth watering at their terror, my roots twitching in anticipation, because now I'm part of it. Now I am the rest stop. And as another set of headlights washes over the broken sign, as another weary traveler steps out into the flickering fluorescent glow, I feel the collective anticipation ripple through our shared consciousness. And though part of me still screams in protest, that part grows smaller every day, drowned out by the chorus of whispers that now includes my own voice, joining in the refrain that echoes through the underground chambers, where we wait, where we hunger, where we welcome them home. The steering wheel is slick under my palms, the hum of the engine a dull roar in my ears as I squint through the windshield at the endless stretch of highway, the yellow lines blurring into one long, hypnotic smear under the sickly glow of my headlights, the clock on the dashboard reading 2:37 a.m. in lurid red digits, too late for anything but the occasional ghostly flicker of another truck's taillights vanishing into the dark. And I'm so tired, so goddamn tired, my eyelids sandpaper heavy, my thoughts sluggish as molasses, when I see it. A rest area, unmarked on my GPS, a sudden oasis of fluorescent light in the middle of nowhere. The sign peeling and weather-worn but legible. Rest, stop 1 mile, and relief floods me because I need to piss, need to stretch my legs, need to shake off this creeping dread that's been dogging me since I passed that abandoned car with its doors, hanging open like broken wings. So I signal, though there's no one around to see it, and ease off the gas, the rig groaning as I roll into the empty parking lot, the asphalt cracked and weedy, the lines faded to near invisibility, the few other vehicles parked haphazardly, their windows dark, their tires flat, and something prickles at the back of my neck, a whisper of wrongness, but I ignore it, chalking it up to exhaustion, and kill the engine. The sudden silence oppressive, the air thick with the stench of something sweetly rotten, like fruit left too long in the sun, and I step out, my boots crunching on gravel, the lot eerily still. No cicadas, no wind, just the distant buzz of a flickering light overhead, casting jagged shadows that seem to twitch when I'm not looking. And I head for the restroom, the door groaning as I push it open. The interior lit by a single dying bulb, the tiles slick with something dark and sticky. The mirrors fogged, my reflection warped, my face not quite mine. The eyes too wide, the mouth stretched in a grin I didn't make. And I stumble back, heart hammering, telling myself it's the light, it's the fatigue. But then I hear it. A wet shuffling sound from one of the stalls, the scrape of something dragging itself across, The floor and the smell hits me, that rotting sweetness now mixed with the coppery tang of blood, and I bolt, slamming the door behind me, my breath coming in ragged gasps, the parking lot shifting, the exits I swear were there a second ago, now gone, the vending machines humming, their glass fronts displaying rows of swollen, mold-covered snacks, the labels peeling, the dates decades old, and I fumble for my keys, my hands shaking, the rig somehow farther away than it was, the distance stretching, the air thickening, and then I see them. The other travelers, there, faces pale and waxy under the flickering lights, their movements too smooth, too deliberate, their eyes reflecting the light like an animal's, and one turns to me, its mouth moving, but the words are wrong, garbled, like a radio tuned just off the station, and I run, my lungs burning. The rig's door handle cold in my grip, but the engine won't turn over, just clicks and whines, the CB crackling to life, a voice whispering in static. You shouldn't have stopped. You shouldn't have stopped. And the lights above me burst one by one, the darkness pressing in, the shapes moving closer, their limbs too long, their shadows wrong. And I realize with a gut-churning certainty that this place isn't on the map because it isn't a place at all. It's a throat, and I'm being swallowed. The walls of the rest stop pulsing like living tissue, the floor undulating beneath my feet as I stagger toward the rig, my fingers slipping on the door handle, the metal now warm and slick, almost fleshy, and the CB screeches, a voice that isn't a voice but a chorus of something wet and choking, whispering, "Too late, too late," and the shadows peel themselves, from the ground, stretching into impossible shapes, their fingers brushing my shoulders, my neck, their touch like cold grease, and I scream. But the sound is swallowed by the thick air. The rig's headlights flicker and die, the darkness complete now, suffocating, and I feel it. The thing behind me, its breath like spoiled meat, its hands closing around my arms, dragging me backward, not toward the rest stop but into the earth itself. The asphalt splitting open like a wound, the smell of wet soil and decay overwhelming, and I know, with a horror that roots me to the spot, that this is where the missing go, the ones who vanish without a trace, the ones whose rigs are found idling on the side of the road. Doors open, coffee still warm in the cup, and as the ground swallows me whole, the last thing I see is the rest stop sign, now rusted and broken, the letters rearranged into something that was never meant to be read, and the CB whispers one final terrible truth. Welcome home. And then the earth seals above me with a wet, sucking sound, the weight of the soil pressing down, filling my mouth, my nose, my lungs. But I don't suffocate. I don't die, because this place doesn't let you die. It keeps you. And as my eyes adjust to the blackness, I see them. The others. Their faces stretched in eternal screams, their bodies fused with the roots and the rocks, their mouths moving in silent pleas. And I understand now, as the roots begin to twist around my legs, as my skin fuses with the dirt, as my screams become one with the chorus beneath the earth, that the rest stop isn't just a place. It's alive, and it's hungry, and it's been waiting. Always waiting for the next tired soul to pull off the highway to step into its jaws, to become part of its endless, gnawing hunger. And as my thoughts dissolve into the dark, the last thing I hear is the distant sound of tires on asphalt, another rig rolling to a stop, another driver stepping out into the flickering light, another meal for the thing that wears the shape of a rest stop, and I try to scream a warning, but the earth has already taken my voice, and the CB crackles to life one last time, whispering, "We've been waiting for you." And now I feel it too, the hunger, the ancient, insatiable hunger that binds us all together beneath the soil. Our consciousnesses merging into one terrible awareness that stretches across forgotten highways and lost backroads, a network of hunger and despair. And I realize with dawning horror that I can feel them too. The new arrivals, their fear like nectar, their confusion delicious, and worst of all, I find myself craving it, my mouth watering at their terror, my roots twitching in anticipation. Because now I'm part of it. Now I am the rest stop. And as another set of headlights washes over the broken sign, as another weary traveler steps out into the flickering fluorescent glow, I feel the collective anticipation ripple through our shared consciousness. And though part of me still screams in protest, that part grows smaller every day. drowned out by the chorus of whispers that now includes my own voice, joining in the refrain that echoes through the underground chambers where we wait, where we hunger, where we welcome them home. And now I feel the new one approaching, his boots crunching on gravel just as mine once did, his breath quickening as he senses something wrong but can't place it, his hand trembling as he reaches for the restroom door. And through the network of roots and tendrils that connect us all, I feel the others stirring in anticipation, feel their excitement like electricity in the soil. And as the door creaks open, as his scream begins to form in his throat, I find my own voice joining the chorus, my own hunger rising to meet theirs, and the words come unbidden to what's left of my lips, the same words that welcomed me, the same words that will welcome countless others as the cycle continues endlessly through the long, hungry nights. Come inside, traveler. Rest a while. We've prepared a place just for you. The hum of the tires on asphalt is the only thing keeping me sane, a steady drone beneath the static of the CB radio, the dashboard lights flickering like dying stars as I push through another endless stretch of I-80, the Wyoming darkness swallowing the highway whole. It's 2:37 a.m., and the only company I've got is the occasional glint of eyes in the ditch, a coyote maybe, or just my mind playing tricks, when the radio crackles to life, not with the usual trucker banter or dispatcher chatter, but with a voice that shouldn't be there, a woman's voice choked with panic, gasping out numbers that make my blood freeze. 911, please, oh God. We're on Highway 212 near Crow Agency. There's a semi coming the wrong way. It's not stopping. Before the line dissolves into screams and a sound I know too well, the screech of metal on metal, the wet crunch of impact, and then silence. I grip the wheel tighter, telling myself it's just a prank, some asshole with a scanner and a sick sense of humor. But then the news alert blares on my phone 3 hours later. Head-on collision, Highway 212, fatalities confirmed, and the details, matched down to the color of the truck, blue like yours. A voice whispers in my head. But that's impossible, isn't it? The next night it happens again. A staticky sob. 911, we're trapped. The bridge is collapsing. I can see the water. And I'm shaking so hard I nearly miss my exit, only to hear the report the next morning of a catastrophic failure on the I-35W span, cars plunging into the river below. By the third call, I'm sweating through my shirt, the metallic stench of fear mixing with the diesel fumes, because this time it's a child's voice, whimpering. Mommy won't wake up. And I know what's coming, but I'm powerless to stop it. The accident already etched into time like a scar. I start scanning the channels, desperate for anything but those voices. But they find me anyway, bleeding through every frequency, each one more horrifying than the last. And that's when I hear it. My own voice. Ragged with terror, screaming. Help me, I'm in the cab, it's coming, it's right behind me. And the transmission cuts off with a guttural noise I can't unhear. Now every shadow on the road feels alive. Every flicker of headlights feels like a warning. And the CB won't stop whispering. Turn around. Turn around. But there's nowhere to go. Just the endless blacktop and the creeping certainty that I'm already dead. That these calls are echoes of a future I can't escape. The final transmission comes as I'm rounding a curve, the moon a sickly yellow through the haze, and it's my voice again, but this time it's not on the radio. It's in the cab with me. A wet, choking gasp right behind my ear, and the last thing I hear before the headlights blind me is my own scream. It's here. And the crushing weight of time folding in on itself, the road vanishing beneath me, the CB crackling with 1,000 voices all saying the same thing. You. Knew. You always knew. The engine's roar becomes a scream as the rig lurches, the wheel jerking in my hands like something alive. And in the rearview mirror I see it. Not a truck, not another vehicle, but a shape. Something dark and wrong. Its edges bleeding into the night like ink in water, and the CB erupts in a chorus of overlapping voices, all mine, all screaming in perfect unison. Don't look, don't look. But it's too late because the thing in the mirror grins, its mouth splitting wide like a wound, and suddenly the road ahead isn't the road anymore. It's a dead end, a sheer drop into blackness, and the brakes don't work. The pedals, slammed to the floor with a hollow thud, useless, and the radio is screeching now. A sound like metal tearing, like bones breaking, and my own voice rises above the noise, not from the speakers but from the empty passenger seat beside me, whispering, "You should have turned back when you had the chance." The cab fills with the stench of burning rubber and something worse, something rotten, and the dashboard lights flicker faster, faster, until they're strobing like a heartbeat, like a countdown, and the thing in the mirror is closer now. Its fingers, too long, too many, curling over the edge of the glass, and the last 911 call plays, the one I've been dreading, the one where my voice doesn't scream but laughs, a wet gurgling sound, and says, "Too late, too late." As the windshield cracks in a spiderweb of fractures, as the darkness outside presses in, as the thing in the mirror reaches through and grabs me, and the final thing I hear before the world dissolves into static is the CB clicking back on, one last time, and a voice that isn't mine, that was never mine, whispering, "Welcome to the loop." And then the tires leave the road, and the fall begins. And I realize, as the air fills with the sound of my own screams, that this isn't the first time this has happened, that I've been here before, that I'll be here again, that the calls were never warnings at all, just echoes, just pieces of a story that's been playing forever. And the worst part isn't the falling, isn't the thing in the mirror, isn't even the knowing. It's the way the radio keeps playing, even as the cab crumples, even as the world goes black, the voices rising in a hymn of static and suffering. And the last thing I see before the impact is the odometer rolling over, the numbers slipping back to zero, and the road stretching ahead once more, endless, hungry, waiting for me to do it all again. The impact never comes. Instead, there's a sound like a tape rewinding. A wet, mechanical whirring as the world lurches backward, the shattered windshield pulling itself together, the twisted metal groaning as it straightens. And suddenly, I'm back in the driver's seat, hands white-knuckled on the wheel, the odometer, reading zero, the same stretch of empty highway stretching ahead like a noose. The CB crackles, but this time it's not a voice. It's a sound, a low, droning tone that vibrates in my teeth, in my bones, and the thing in the mirror is still there. But now it's not grinning. It's watching. Its eyes, too many, too black, reflecting my face back at me in fractured pieces. The air in the cab is thick, syrupy, like breathing through oil, and when I try to scream, nothing comes out. My voice stolen, erased, and the radio dial turns on its own, scrolling through frequencies like it's searching for something before landing on a dead channel. Except it's not dead. It's waiting. And then the whispers start, not from the speakers but from the vents, from the seams of the seats, from the darkness under the dash. 1,000 voices murmuring in languages I don't know but somehow understand, all saying the same thing: "You're almost home." The headlights flicker, and for a second, just a second, the road ahead isn't empty. There's a figure standing in the center line, its arms outstretched, its face a blur of static. And I know, with a certainty that turns my stomach to ice, that if I hit it, the cycle resets again, that this is the test, the trap, the punishment. But my foot won't lift from the accelerator, the truck won't slow, and the figure tilts its head, its mouth opening into a void, and the CB erupts, in a scream so loud it bursts my eardrums, the blood warm as it trickles down my neck, and then silence. The road is empty again. The odometer ticks over to 1. And from the passenger seat, my own voice, ragged and exhausted, sighs, again. The engine revs on its own. The wheels begin to turn. And somewhere, in the static between stations, another 911 call starts to play. The steering wheel jerks under my hands like a living thing as the truck accelerates beyond control, the speedometer needle trembling at the edge of the red. And I realize with dawning horror that my hands aren't moving it. Something beneath. The dashboard is pulling the wires like puppet strings, forcing my foot harder onto the gas as the headlights illuminate a new stretch of road I don't recognize. The asphalt cracked and overgrown. The yellow lines faded into nothing. The CB radio's static deepens into a guttural breathing sound, each exhale carrying fragments of words. Wrong way. Turn back. They're waiting. And the air grows thick with the smell of ozone and spoiled meat, clinging to the back of my throat. Shadows slither across the windshield, not cast by anything outside but moving on their own, stretching into shapes that almost look like hands, like faces pressed against the glass from inside the cab. And when I dare to glance at the mirror, the thing is still there, but now it's wearing my face, my eyes wide with terror, my mouth stretched into its impossible grin, and it mouths words at me that sync perfectly with the whispers seeping from the radio. You were never driving. The road ahead split suddenly, a fork with no sign, no markers, just two identical stretches of highway disappearing into the dark, and the CB erupts in overlapping screams, my voice, the woman's, the child's, all shrieking. Left, left. Left, while the thing in the mirror hisses right in a tone that cracks the glass. I wrench the wheel, tires screeching, and for a heartbeat, everything goes silent. No engine, no static, no breath, until the truck lurches violently, as if something massive has grabbed the chassis from below, and the headlights illuminate. The figure again, this time inside the cab, its limbs contorted to fit between the seats, its static face flickering through 1,000 expressions before settling on mine, and it reaches out with fingers that melt and reform like wax, pressing a single digit to my forehead. The last thing I hear before the darkness swallows me whole is the CB clicking on one final time, broadcasting a voice that isn't human, isn't even a voice at all, just noise, just pain, saying, "Delivery complete." And then the road unspools, and the odometer resets. And the truck, empty now, rolls on into the night, its radio scanning, always scanning for the next voice to echo through the static. The darkness peels back like rotting skin as the truck hurtles forward on its own, the steering wheel now cold and dead under my frozen fingers, the windshield smeared with something thick and black that pulses like a living film. The CB radio's static has crystallized into a voice. Not a human voice, not anymore, but something that mimics speech the way a broken tape recorder mimics music, syllables stuttering and collapsing into each other as it repeats a single phrase. You missed the delivery window. The speedometer needle has snapped off, embedding itself in the dashboard like a dagger, and the fuel gauge spins wildly, though the engine's roar has become something else entirely. Not combustion, not machinery, but a wet, organic churning as if the truck's underbelly has sprouted organs. Outside, the road signs flicker past in a language of jagged symbols that carve themselves into my vision even when I close my eyes, and the headlights now cast not light but shadow, painting the asphalt in negative as the thing in the passenger seat, still wearing my face, still grinning with too many teeth, begins to unravel, its flesh splitting into filaments that weave themselves into the upholstery, the steering column, my own clothes. The air tastes of copper and spoiled milk, and when I try to scream, the sound is siphoned away, pulled into the radio's yawning static as the transmission shifts again, broadcasting a new call, this one in reverse, a garbled, backwards plea for help that resolves into perfect clarity as the truck's hood buckles upward, metal screaming, revealing not an engine, but a cavity, a fleshy, ribbed tunnel descending into blackness, and the CB announces, "Final destination, loading dock." As the brakes fail for the last time, the cab fills with a sound like 1,000 radios tuning to the same dead frequency, and in the split second before impact, I see them, figures lining the road, their arms outstretched, their faces flickering between human and static, and the last coherent thought I have is that they're not waiting for me. They're waiting for the truck. And then the odometer resets. The tape rewinds, and somewhere, on a stretch of highway that doesn't exist, another driver picks up a signal they shouldn't have heard. The wheel dissolves into my hands like wet paper, the cab's interior melting into a liquid blackness that seeps into my pores as the truck plunges into the tunnel of its own gaping hood. The radio static has become a physical force now, vibrating through my ribs like a second heartbeat. The voices, my voice, the woman's, the child's, twisting into a single distorted shriek that peels the skin from my eardrums. The road unspools in impossible geometries, folding back on itself like a Mobius strip made of asphalt and teeth, the headlights reflecting off something massive moving just beyond the edges of reality, something that watches with the patience of a predator who knows the cage is locked from the inside. My body is no longer my own. The thing in the passenger seat has stitched itself into my nervous system, its laughter bubbling up through my vocal cords as the speedometer needle, still embedded in the dash, begins to weep thick, syrupy blood that crawls upward in defiance of gravity, spelling out coordinates that don't correspond to any map. The CB crackles with a new transmission, this one in a voice that's unmistakably mine, but warped, deepened, the words oozing like tar. You. We're the cargo all along. Outside, the figures lining the road begin to step forward in unison, their faces resolving into familiar shapes. Every driver who's ever heard these calls, every soul this highway has swallowed, and as they reach for the truck with hands that unspool into miles of barbed wire, the final realization detonates in my skull. The crashes were never the end. They were the delivery. The odometer resets. The engine screams. And as the first hooked tendrils punch through the disintegrating windshield, the radio achieves perfect, crystalline clarity for the first time, broadcasting my voice from a future. That's already happening. Already happened. Always happening. Welcome to the fleet. The darkness swallows the scream I can no longer voice. The truck dissolves into the static. And somewhere on a dead stretch of midnight highway, a fresh set of headlights flickers on, with a CB already tuned to the wrong frequency. The headlights aren't headlights anymore. They're eyes, lidless and weeping thick strands of luminous fluid that sizzle where they strike the disintegrating pavement, and the road beneath the tires has become a living esophagus, contracting in rhythmic gulps as it pulls us deeper into the gullet of whatever waits beyond the vanishing point. My hands fuse with the disintegrating steering wheel, the flesh bubbling and reforming into something that isn't skin, isn't metal, but some grotesque amalgamation of both, threaded through with pulsing veins of exposed wiring that twitch. With every burst of static from the CB, now embedded in my chest, its speaker grill splitting my sternum open with each transmission, the voices have merged into a single ceaseless wail, a chorus of every soul this highway has ever claimed, and their screams are the fuel now. Their terror the combustion that propels this nightmare forward. The thing that was once my reflection peels itself from the mirror completely, its body unfurling like a grotesque origami of limbs and radio antennas, and it presses its face, my face, but stretched, warped, its features sliding like wet clay, against mine as the windshield cracks spiderweb patterns that aren't fractures at all, but a map, a constellation of every crash site, every doomed driver, all leading to this moment, this convergence. The odometer doesn't reset this time. It shatters, the numbers spilling out like entrails, rearranging themselves into a countdown that sears itself onto my retinas, even as my eyes liquefy from the heat of the thing's breath. The final transmission isn't a voice but a sensation, a frequency that vibrates my bones to powder as it imparts its last truth. You were never the driver. You were the road. The truck's frame distends, the cab birthing itself anew in a grotesque inversion of metal and meat, and as the last of my consciousness unravels into the static, I see them. Endless rows of identical trucks, their headlights, flickering in unison, their radios tuned to the same damned frequency, each containing a driver mid-scream, each scream broadcasting to the next, in an endless, recursive loop of horror. The wheels never stop turning. The static never fades. And deep in the marrow of whatever remains of me, the CB clicks on once more, ready to transmit the next poor soul's final moments to a listener who will swear, right up until their own voice joins the chorus, that the screams they're hearing couldn't possibly be their own. The wheels have stopped turning, but the world keeps moving. The highway stretching like taffy into a spiraling void where the sky should be. The cab's interior now a pulsing, organic chamber lined with teeth that drip a viscous black static. My body is no longer flesh but a writhing mass of radio waves and screaming synapses, every nerve ending tuned to the CB's frequency, as it broadcasts not just sound now but memories. My first kiss twisted into a mouthful of broken glass. My mother's laughter warped into the screech of breaking tires, every cherished moment rewritten as a prelude to this endless crash. The thing wearing my face has unraveled completely, its form dissolving into the cab's very structure, the dashboard now sporting my screaming mouth where the speedometer used to be. my terrified eyes blinking from the rearview mirror. Outside, the figures lining the road begin to merge, their bodies flowing together like melted wax until they form a towering, many-limbed colossus that keeps pace with the truck effortlessly, its surface flickering with the faces of everyone who's ever heard the cursed transmissions. The CB suddenly falls silent, the first true silence since this began, and in that terrible hush I feel the awful understanding click into place. This isn't punishment, it's propagation. The truck shudders violently, its frame splitting, open like a seed pod, and from the ruptured steel bloom thousands of tiny radios, each tuned to the same frequency, each whispering a different fragment of my unraveling psyche. As the last of my human consciousness dissolves into the static, I realize with horrific clarity that the voice in the transmissions was never warning me, it was recruiting me. The cab's roof peels away like the petals of some monstrous flower, revealing an infinite expanse of identical trucks spiraling into the void, each containing a driver at a different stage of transformation. And as my mouth distends to accommodate the first transmission that isn't mine, a new voice, fresh, terror, another soul just beginning their descent. I finally understand my true purpose. I am no longer the listener. I am the broadcast. And as the new driver's scream crackles through what used to be my vocal cords, the cycle begins anew, eternal and unchanging. The highway stretching onward forever, its asphalt paved with the bones of those who came before, its centerline painted in the blood of those yet to hear the call. The wheels begin to turn again, the odometer resets, and somewhere in the static-laced darkness, another set of headlights flickers on. The night was thick with fog when I pulled my rig onto that desolate stretch of highway, the kind of fog that clings to your windshield like wet gauze, refusing to let go. I'd been driving for 8 hours straight, the hum of the engine and the occasional crackle of the CB radio my only companions. The route was supposed to be a shortcut, a back road bypass to shave off a couple of hours from my delivery time. At least, that's what the old-timer at the truck stop had promised me, his eyes glinting with something I couldn't quite place at the time. "Just take the turn past the abandoned Sinclair station," he'd said, tracing a line on a napkin with a grease-stained finger. "Ain't on any map, but it'll get you there faster." I should have known better than to trust a stranger's directions. But the paycheck at the end of this haul was too good to pass up, and time was money, so I took the turn, the tires crunching over gravel as I left the main road behind. The first hour was uneventful, just endless trees and the occasional glimpse of the moon through the fog. But then the road started to change. The pavement grew, rougher, cracked and uneven, as if it hadn't been maintained in decades. The trees crowded in closer, their branches scraping against the sides of my truck like skeletal fingers. And then there were the signs, or rather the lack of them. No mile markers, no exit numbers, just an endless ribbon of asphalt winding deeper into the darkness. I checked my GPS, but the screen was blank, as if the road didn't exist. My stomach tightened, but I told myself I was just tired, that I'd hit the main highway soon enough. Then I saw the first figure. A man, or at least something shaped like a man, standing at the side of the road, his face obscured by the fog. He didn't move, didn't wave, just stood there watching as I drove past. My blood ran cold, but I kept going, gripping the wheel tighter. Minutes later, another figure appeared, then another, all standing in the same eerie stillness. By the third one, I was sweating, my heart pounding in my chest. I reached for the CB, but all I got was static, a hissing white noise that seemed to whisper words I couldn't quite make out. The road began to twist and turn, the trees thinning out to reveal a vast empty field on either side, and that's when I saw it. A truck identical to mine, parked in the middle of the field, its headlights cutting through the fog like two dim eyes. My breath caught in my throat as I slowed down, squinting through the windshield. The door of the other truck was open, swinging gently in the wind, but there was no one inside, no sign of the driver. I hit the gas, my hands shaking, the rig roaring as I sped past. That's when the whispers started. At first I thought it was just the wind, but then I heard my name, clear as day, coming from the empty passenger seat. I nearly swerved off the road. The fog grew thicker, the road narrower, until it was little more than a dirt path. And then, just as I was about to turn around, the headlights illuminated a sign, rusted and bent, but unmistakable. It read, "You've been driving for 3 hours. You're not alone." My blood turned to ice. I slammed on the brakes, the rig skidding to a halt. That's when I saw them. Dozens of figures emerging from the fog, their faces blank, their movements slow and deliberate. They surrounded the truck, their hands pressing against the windows, the glass fogging up with their breath. I threw the rig into reverse, but the wheels spun uselessly in the mud. The CB crackled to life, a voice, deep, distorted, saying, "You took the wrong road, driver. Now you're one of us." The last thing I remember is the sound of the door creaking open, the cold fingers wrapping around my wrist, and the fog swallowing me whole. They found my truck 3 days later, abandoned on the side of a highway I'd never been on. The engine still running, the GPS blinking with a single impossible message. Route not found. And sometimes, when the fog rolls in just right, other drivers say they see a figure standing by the side of the road, its face hidden, its hand raised in a silent wave. They say if you look too close, you'll recognize the uniform. You'll recognize me. Because that route isn't on any map, and once you drive it, you never really leave. The worst part? I'm still driving it. Every night when the fog creeps in and the roads empty out, I find myself back behind the wheel of that same rig, my hands fused to the steering wheel like it's part of me now. The headlights cut through the darkness, but they don't shine on anything real. Just the same endless stretch of road, the same skeletal trees, the same figures waiting at the edges. Sometimes I see other trucks, their drivers wide-eyed and panicked, just like I was. I try to warn them, to flash my lights, or scream through the glass, but they never see me. Or maybe they do, and that's why they speed up, why their faces twist in terror as they vanish into the mist. The CB radio never stops whispering now, voices overlapping, some begging for help, others laughing in a way that makes my skin crawl. I've memorized every crack in the pavement, every twisted mile marker that shouldn't exist, because this road doesn't end. It just loops, forever, pulling in anyone foolish enough to take the shortcut. And the figures outside? They're getting closer. At first they just watched. Now they tap on the windows, their fingertips leaving smudges that won't wipe away. Last night, one of them smiled at me. At least I think it was a smile. Its mouth stretching too wide, showing too many teeth. I don't sleep anymore. I just drive. And sometimes, when the static on the radio clears for a second, I hear dispatchers talking about missing truckers, last seen turning down an unmarked road. I want to tell them to stop searching. They won't find them. They're here with me, their headlights flickering in the distance, their voices joining the chorus on the CB. So if you're ever out there, and an old man at a truck stop offers you a shortcut, you run. Because once you take that turn, the road takes you. And it doesn't let go. The gas gauge hasn't moved in what feels like years, always hovering just above empty, like the road itself is feeding the truck just enough to keep me going. I tried shutting off the engine once, just once, and the silence that followed was worse than the whispers. The cab filled with the sound of breathing that wasn't mine, and the temperature dropped until I could see my own panicked breaths fogging in the air. Then the knocking started, slow at first, then furious like something was trying to get in, or worse, like something was already inside and wanted out. I turned the key so fast I nearly broke it, and the engine roared back to life like it was laughing at me. The headlights flickered, and for a split second I saw them, hundreds of them, lining the road, their hollow eyes reflecting the light back at me. They weren't standing anymore. They were crawling. Toward the truck. Toward me. I slammed the accelerator, but the rig barely moved, like the road itself was holding me back. That's when I noticed the hands. Pale, skeletal fingers curling, up from the edges of the pavement, gripping the tires, dragging at the undercarriage. The radio screamed, a sound no human throat could make, and the voice that followed wasn't pretending to be human anymore. "You're ours now," it gurgled, like it was drowning in static, just like the others. I don't look in the mirrors anymore. I know what I'd see. The others are still back there, their trucks rotting, their faces pressed against the glass, mouths open in silent screams. Sometimes when the fog thins, I catch glimpses of the real world, a gas station, a rest stop, families packing their cars in daylight. But when I try to steer toward them, the wheel locks. The road won't let me leave. And the worst part? I'm starting to forget. The memories of before, my name, my family, the sun on my face, are slipping away, replaced by the hum of the engine and the whispers in the dark. I think that's how it gets you. It doesn't kill you. It just makes you forget you were ever alive. So if you're reading this, if by some miracle this transmission is breaking through, listen to me. Don't stop. Don't turn off your engine. And whatever you do, don't look at the things in the mirrors. They're not reflections, they're warnings. Because this road, it's hungry. And you're already on the menu. The headlights just flickered again. They're closer now. I think they're smiling. God help me, I think I'm smiling too. The dashboard clock is stuck at 3:07 a.m., but I know time doesn't work the same here. The hands haven't moved since that first night, yet I've watched the moon rise and set 100 times through the bug-splattered windshield. I keep finding things in my cab that don't belong. A coffee cup I didn't fill, warm to the touch. The liquid inside too thick and dark to be coffee. Route maps scrawled in handwriting that looks like mine but isn't, with destinations like nowhere, and the other side circled in shaky red ink. The sleeper berth behind me smells like rotting meat now, though I haven't opened the curtains in weeks. Something moves back there when I'm not looking. I hear the blankets rustle, and the mattress. Springs creak under weight that shouldn't exist. The CB crackled to life yesterday with my own voice screaming for help, begging me to turn around before it's too late. But when I grabbed the mic, my fingers passed right through it like it was made of smoke. The road signs have started changing. When I blink, 1 second they say last exit 50 miles, and the next they're covered in what looks like blood. The letters rearranged to spell too late driver. I think the truck is alive now. The engine purrs when the things outside get close, like it's welcoming them. The air brakes hiss words in a language that makes my teeth ache. And when I press my palm against the gear shift, I can feel something like a pulse beneath the cold metal. The windows won't roll down anymore, but things still get in. Last night I woke up to the smell of diesel and rotting flowers, and in the passenger seat sat a version of me with black eyes and a grin that split his face ear to ear. He didn't speak, just pointed at the odometer, which now only has 6 numbers, all of them spinning too fast to read. I think when they finally stop, whatever's left of me will be gone for good. The road is singing now, a lullaby my mother used to sing, but the words are wrong. They're inviting me to step outside, to join the others in the fog. The door locks clicked open by themselves this morning. The things outside have started calling me by the name I forgot I had. And the terrible thing? Part of me wants to answer. The truck is slowing down on its own now. The headlights are dimming. I can see them waiting for me in the glow of the taillights, their arms outstretched. They look almost familiar. Maybe I've been here before. Maybe I've always been here. The key won't turn. The engine won't stop. The road goes on forever. The road goes on forever. The road goes on forever. The steering wheel is melting under my fingers now, the leather gone soft and fleshy like human skin. The radio dials turn themselves, cycling through stations that play nothing but distorted recordings of my own screams from earlier in this endless drive. I've started seeing billboards with my face on them, but the dates underneath are from years ago. My obituary, my missing person poster, my childhood photos all bleeding together in that same sickly yellow light that comes from nowhere and everywhere at once. The fuel gauge has started counting up instead of down, the numbers climbing towards some unimaginable total that makes my head hurt to think about. My logbook fills itself with entries in languages I shouldn't know, but somehow understand. Accounts of deliveries made to places that don't exist. Cargo manifests listing items like souls, lightly used, and last breaths, slightly expired. The air in the cab smells like funeral flowers and burnt rubber now, so thick I can taste it coating my throat. My reflection in the windshield has stopped matching my movements. It smiles when I scream, puts a finger to its lips when I beg for help. The other trucks have begun passing me more frequently, their drivers all wearing my face in various states of decay, their headlights shining straight through me like I'm the ghost now. Sometimes when I close my eyes for too long, I wake up in the sleeper berth with no memory of moving.